I would ask that all the attendees please sign in and that we all follow the rules of etiquette in testifying, and no crosstalk, please. Let's move all the comments towards the chair and respect each other's positions without, of course, anything more than that. Opening remarks, co-chair, do you have any?
No.
Okay, and I don't. Today, we're going to try to work on some bill drafts to move forward. Like everybody, I think everyone's worked pretty hard on this, trying to figure out a way to improve what we're currently doing. Whether I agree or disagree with that, that's irrelevant. But we're all trying as hard as we can to come out with a product that betters the situation for the state of Wyoming, for the people that we represent. So I'll just end with that, and then I would ask for the approval of minutes from the August 7th, 8th meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Representative Webb. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Approval of minutes approved. Next, move on to legislative committee updates. And then I assume we're going to go, well, co-chair, legislative committee updates, or LSO. Okay.
Good morning. Jesse Schaefer, Legislative Service Office. The Select Committee did request a couple updates on any interim committee activities related to gaming, and so we do have a couple for you today.
Excuse me, I'm having a hard time hearing that. Is it just me or it's the
Absolutely.
Representative Webb.
And I can speak up too. Do that.
Okay, thank you. If you speak up, and
Awesome.
if we have a problem, we can bring IT in. Thank you, Representative Webb.
Great, thank you. Okay, so the first update we have for you today is from the Joint Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources Committee. At their August 19th meeting, they decided to sponsor 26 LSO 114, Gaming Proceeds Outdoor Recreation. This bill essentially just takes the distribution of revenue and puts the remaining half, after the first $300,000 go to the Wyoming Department of Health. Half of that remainder goes to the Outdoor Recreation and Tourism Trust Fund income account for spending on outdoor recreation activities. And then the other half of that remaining revenue goes to the Wyoming Gaming Commission as general fund dollars. From the Select Committee on Capital Financing and Investments, they had their last meeting on Tuesday, September 9th. They plan to discuss 4 bills, the first of which, 26 LSO 124, Gaming Central Monitoring System. This would have required that the Wyoming Gaming Commission have a system or multiple systems for central monitoring for their regulated gaming types. And it was discussed, but the committee voted not to sponsor. The next bill, 26 LSO 129, online sports wagering revenue remittance amendments, would have increased operator tax for online sports wagering operators. It was discussed, but it also failed to be sponsored. 26 LSO 130, skill-based amusement games highway fund. This bill was not discussed by the committee, but it was intended to increase the operator tax for skill-based amusement games and update the distribution to go to the highway fund. And 26 LSO 131, Perry Mutual Wagering Highway Fund. This would have just updated that distribution from Perry Mutual Wagering. In addition to what it goes to now, would also go to the Highway Fund. And this bill was also not discussed by the Select Committee. And then the final update in response to a question that came up at the Select Committee's August meeting regarding public notice requirements to be placed in newspapers. We did ask around internally to see if any other committees were working on that subject, and it does not appear that any committee is actively working on public notice requirements in newspapers. So with those updates, I am happy to answer any questions.
Co-chair line.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that. My question is about the TRW legislation. Do they also have the amendments in that same bill, or is there in our last meeting, there was a TRW amendment to, which statute was it? Do you remember, Karen? Let me pull my notes and then I'll ask you. And then my other question is, on proceeds, Mr. Chairman, if I may continue.
Continue.
When they want to direct the revenue to outdoor rec, is that taking away from the general fund of the state of Wyoming?
Co-Chairman Lean, it appears that the revenue does not change. It's just the distribution of it. So there would be half of the remaining revenue that comes after that $300,000 to the Department of Health would go to that tourism trust fund account. I am not sure what type of dollars would be in that account, but I would assume, though, I will not assume. I will just go ahead and leave it at that.
And Madam Chair, I believe I have the bill in front of me, and I think I can answer that. The existing
Tam.
statute, thank you. Mr. Co-Chairman, thank you. The existing statute has the remainder of the money going into the general fund, and this goes into that and carves out the 1/2 portion for the outdoor recreation and tourism trust fund income account.
Thank you, Tamara. I think on that same vein of questioning, Nick, with the Gaming Commission, I'd like to hear what you think about that bill and if there's, I guess, your opinion on that and how you think it affects what you do on the director of the Gaming Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nick Laramendi, Executive Director of the Wyoming Game Commission. The commission doesn't really have any care on this one either way. The Wyoming Gaming Commission doesn't receive any proceeds from sports wagering. Currently, the first $300,000 every fiscal year goes to the Department of Health, and then the remainder of that goes to the general fund. This would split that in half. Half would go to the general fund, and then half would go to the outdoor trust fund that they've created with this bill.
Thank you, Director. The next question would be, do we have anyone with the Department of Health, I guess, available? Karen?
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe we have anyone this morning. They will be presenting to you when we have our social impacts of gaming, and perhaps they can address that at that point.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. Well, thank you. Then we'll move on to item number 3, criminal gambling and exceptions. Tamara, would you like to come up?
Members of the committee. Mr. Chairman, I'm Tamara Revley, Legislative Counsel with the Legislative Service Office and staff to this committee. This is a new bill draft. It's 26 LSO 169. The version is 0.4. It's called Gambling Amendments. If you remember at our last August meeting, which wasn't too long ago, the director, Laramendi, with the Wyoming Gaming Commission, provided an overview of criminal gambling definitions and examples of criminal matters that rely on these statutory definitions. The Select Committee then requested that LSO staff work with the Gaming Commission, the Wyoming Liquor Commission, the Association of Sheriffs and Chiefs of Police to take their input that was discussed during public comment and to develop a bill draft that clarifies criminal gambling definitions. That's what this bill draft does. It incorporates that. And the big picture of this bill draft, if you remember, is that gambling is generally defined as risking property for gain. And it's a crime unless an exception exists. And the exceptions are all within statute. Specifically, they're mostly within the definition of gaming or gambling. Current exceptions cover activities like bingo and pool tabs, Calcutta wagering, charitable raffles, social gambling, which we'll talk about, contests of skill, and then all the licensed gaming that you have within other statutes. The big picture of this bill, I guess, is that this would narrow the social gambling exception. It would add new requirements for charitable raffles, and it would simplify the definition of profit. So overall, I think you can think about this bill as tightening the scope of the exceptions. Keep in mind the common types of gambling as you consider this bill that you may or may not wish to criminalize. Things like poker nights, maybe company casino nights, March Madness, office pools, friendship pools, neighborhood pools, maybe cribbage at the coffee shop with a little bit of money on it, maybe simple wagers about who buys dinner, perhaps poker at the local pool hall. If you keep those in mind as we go through this bill draft, it might help you decide whether this is the language of the exception you want to amend. So again, it's working draft 0.4. It's listed under Senator Kolb's name, again, because this committee needs to recommend it to another committee to sponsor. And on page 1, you see that we go into the existing criminal code. That's 67101, the definitions, which are then used for the crime of gaming, or gambling, excuse me. And on page 2, paragraph 3, gambling means risking any property for gain contingent in whole or in part upon lot, new amendments here, chance, in any game played with cards, dice, balls, or on any other gambling device, or contingent on the happening or outcome of an event, including a sporting event over which the person taking a risk has no control, but does not include any of the following. And then this is where the laundry list of exceptions come in. This specific exception on page 2, line 9, subparagraph E, is the social gaming exception. And it says, what's not gambling is any game, wager, or transaction, and we candle this out, that is incidental to a bona fide social relationship, is participated in by natural persons only. And then on page 2, lines 18 through 22, add a new element of private, a new non-public element. So this would be conducted in a private manner, at a private place, or at a business or fraternal organization for which the primary source of revenue of the business or fraternal organization is not derived from any activity involving risking property for gain. On page 3, add a new element, 4, that is not advertised or otherwise open to public participation. And then on lines 4 through 8, revise this element to be in which no person receives any economic benefit from the game, wager, or transaction other than the direct realization of winnings. So no person takes the house doesn't take a cut, the business doesn't have a dealer that's being paid or receiving tips, etc. Now, one thing that the committee had talked about and that prior work had been done in prior sessions was to try to better define that social relationship aspect. What is a real bona fide friendship? Did not end up going in that direction with this bill draft based on the feedback from stakeholders. But if you did want to work on that relationship, defining what is a real bona fide social relationship, the staff comment provides some suggestions. The first suggestion was requiring that a relationship exist among persons, all of whom are known to one another, independent of the game, wager, or transaction. So can't introduce a new friend to the game. It's a friendship among all persons, or defining bona fide social relationship as a genuine social relationship between two or more persons wherein each person has an established knowledge of the other, that it shall not include a social relationship which has arisen for the purpose of gambling. I think prior committees have found that it's tricky to try to define what a real friendship is, and in a way that holds up under the court of law. It can be, personal relationships can be complicated, and they can be more complicated when you involve gambling and criminal aspect. So I'll leave those there for you in the staff comment to contemplate. Then we're done with the social gambling exemption now. The next change to this bill draft is raffles. Existing law just exempts raffles conducted for charitable purposes. Statute doesn't define what charitable purposes is. The Gaming Commission, I believe, has defined, advises the public when they ask about what a charitable purpose is. And I'll let them talk about that if they wish to. But this would narrow that a little bit by specifying that it's raffles conducted for charitable purposes in which 100% of the net, moving on to page 4, of the net proceeds remaining after payment of all costs, supplies, and winnings are used for charitable purposes. So 100% after costs would need to go to the actual charitable purpose. Couldn't go to a private or profit purpose. On page 4, the next change deals with the definition of profit. This was suggested that the committee clarify it, and if you do read through the stricken language, it can take a minute to understand what was intended. And I think the history of that has been trying to clarify the definition, but maybe coming up with something that does require a little bit of parsing out. And this would just simplify that to say that profit means any financial gain. Then finally, I have a staff comment. One of the things I worked with the stakeholders about was whether, and this was discussed at the last meeting, there are types of gaming that are conducted by charities that raise money, fundraising, that it doesn't fall within one of these exceptions. For example, raffles are allowed, but there's nothing about having a poker night to raise money for a cause. And if the people participating in that poker night are not all friends, they don't fall under the social gaming exemption technically. If it's open to the public, you advertise your fundraiser, you want to bring in lots of business, so you raise money, that poker night and things like that don't actually fall under one of the exceptions. And I'm not sure that it's been an issue that anyone's been prosecuted for something like this, but it can blur the lines. And if the committee wishes to make those types of changes, we might need to look at the entire definitions and try to work it out in a framework that makes sense with the existing. You don't want an exception for fundraising that would swallow the whole of all the other exceptions. You want to work it in a way that makes sense. For example, bingo and pull tabs are defined in statute, and there's a lot of criteria they need to meet to qualify as a charitable exception. Similarly, Calcutta wagering has to be conducted by certain organizations, nationally chartered veterans, religious, charitable, educational, or fraternal organizations. So there's certain criteria they have to meet. And even since 2020, they have to be licensed by the Wyoming Gaming Commission, although it's, I believe, a no-fee license. But that was discussed by the committee, so I did want to bring it to your attention. Finally, the bill would just be effective standard July 1st, 2026.
Thank you, Tamara. Questions? Representative Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you repeat your bona fide social relationship? And I'm looking at the Colorado statutes. Is that basically what you're saying? Is that, I don't know if you've looked at those, but it's all participants must have an established social relationship based on some common interest other than gambling itself. And also was no profit motive. No one other than the players can profit from the game or activity. Is that, are we,
Tamara?
is that?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, Representative Johnson. No, I didn't have exactly Colorado statute covered, but it is very similar. So this originally came from the Model Criminal Code of 1982. A lot of states brought in this gaming exception as it was written in the Model Criminal Code. And I think Wyoming's about the only one that has it left as just any game wager or transaction that is incidental to a bona fide social relationship without expanding upon that. Colorado statute, I think, is maybe one of the closest to Wyoming's now, and they've had court guidance and they've had amendments, I believe, to better define it and to try to get at that element that your friendship can't be, you're all friends because you like poker. You're all friends because you like this type of gambling. It has to be something that is genuine.
Follow up?
But if you were in a fraternal organization, would that qualify as a social relationship and then they could have a poker night? I mean, that is not, that's something other than gaming. Is that, can you expound on that? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Tamara?
Thank you. Good question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure how Colorado brings in the fraternal clubs, but what this bill draft attempts to do is to leave that bona fide social relationship as it exists, but then bring in Romanet paragraph 3 on lines 18 through 22 to clarify that if the gaming's in a private manner or it's at a private place or a business or fraternal organization that isn't one that makes money off of gaming or gambling, then it would be allowed.
Thank you, Tamara. Senator McEwen, can you bring him in?
Well, I'm sorry I couldn't be there today, Mr. Chairman and Mrs. Chairman. Got something going on here also. So having said that, are we casting too wide of a net to capture every possible gaming possibility? Or could we come up with some better language to cover it all and be more general? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Tamara, do you have a thought on that?
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Chairman, I think what you're on to is a good point, and this is kind of the structure of Wyoming statute, is that we first define gambling to mean any risk you take of property where you're trying to receive a gain. And then we go in and carve out the things that are accepted. And that could be revised to sort of be the other way around. Instead of defining what gambling is and what is not gambling, you could just have carve-outs more broadly. But I think what this is trying to do, this bill is narrowing the scope. And if you wanted to leave it as is, it's a wider, I suppose, there's more exceptions. There are more things that are coming up in the counties that prosecuting attorneys and the Wyoming Gaming Commission are dealing with. And this is attempting to narrow that scope to help them be able to prosecute those activities if they believe that it falls under what is not allowed. So yes, we could do anything you want with this bill draft. It's just a matter of policy and how you'd like to see it.
Quick follow-up, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead, Senator McEwen.
I wish I could remember what the name's called of the game, but where you throw bean bags at a hole.
Cornhole.
Yes, thank you. So do we cover cornhole?
Thank
I
you.
guess my concern is, and we're back to the social bona fide friendship question, and I do support the bill. But my question is, could we come up with better language that doesn't define everything like bingo, pull tabs, and still get the same thing done? And now I'll be quiet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator McEwen. Tamara, do you have any follow-up with that, or?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a follow-up on cornhole. There is another exception for games of skill. So to the extent it takes skill to get that beanbag in the hole, that is accepted as well as other things. But when you start to make a wager, when you're watching two of your friends play cornhole and you wager on which one's going to win, then that's where this exception might come in situations like that. This is just how the framework has developed over the years. There have been exceptions that have been created, and then it seems more statute is developed to try to better define what is a pull tab or who is qualified to run pull tabs in bingo and how much of the profit needs to go to charity and how to make sure it's not allowing for the operation of commercial businesses. There are lots of different policy methods, but when I read the statute, it seems that these are ripe for loopholes, and it's just a matter of what will work for your policy goals.
Okay. Thank you, Tamara. Co-Chair Line, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I'm currently reading this, is there then a problem with poker runs or 50-50 raffles? Would they be exempted as currently written?
Tamara?
Mr. Chairman, Madam Chair, I don't find an exception that they clearly fall under, where you're opening it to the public to come and participate and raise money for a cause. I'm not sure that they are being prosecuted But it doesn't seem that they clearly fall under one of these exceptions.
Follow up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When you speak about skill-based gaming exemptions, if someone wanted to wager on, say, a rodeo, would they make the catch with the rope or stay on the bronc? Is that then defined as a game of skill?
Tamara?
Thank you. The wagering itself is not a game of skill. So obviously the participants in sports or in a rodeo are skilled and athletic and whatever else. But what is being attempted to be exempted here is that wagering on it. And some people might be more skilled at wagering than others. You might have a better eye at who's gonna catch the steer, who isn't. But generally, that's just gambling. And unless it's accepted, if you're friends and you're wagering amongst your friends or your family, then it's exempted. If you're doing it in a pari-mutuel pool, then it's a pari-mutuel event and it's probably licensed.
Thank you. Representative Webb?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My concern is with lines 18 through 23 under bona fide social relationship. Are we exempting too much? You know, if I'm reading this correctly, we can sit in an establishment, even in a business, which could be Walmart, and we could play poker legally. I want to take that down to a bar. Do we want to allow that kind of stuff in bars and our fraternal orders? Are we giving people the opportunity to then violate the law under the table? Do we need to make that more inclusive or less inclusive, I guess?
Tamara?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Webb, I think that's the policy question. That's the million-dollar policy question that you're grappling with here. And you'll hear from the members about why the stakeholders that suggested forms of this language that I've incorporated here about why or why not to do it, and it's just your choice. But do keep in mind that beginning on lines 12 and then ending on page 3, line 8, those are all ands. So this exception is all of these 5 elements. It's social relationship, natural person, so we're not bringing in a gambling device like a machine or a slot machine. It's a private manner, private place, or business or fraternal organization. It's not advertised, and no person receives any economic other than the person who wins.
Follow up?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, it's just a concern I have. I think we need to make sure that we cover those bases we discussed.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you for your answer, Tamara. With that, Director, would you have a comment about this? What do you see here, and what are your thoughts?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the one maybe point of consideration I would have for you all, on page 2, lines 18 through 22, the way that this is currently written, it says, conducted in a private manner at a private place or a business or fraternal organization for which the primary source of revenue of that business or fraternal organization is not derived from any activity involving risking property for gain. So to Representative Webb's point, if, the way that I read this, if you take a small local pub that's got a poker table or two, that also has legal gaming, i.e. say skill games, and we start investigating a case, we're gonna have to start looking through financials to ensure that the bar's profits lean heavily on the alcohol sales versus the gaming sales. I will tell you that there are some locations currently that the proceeds that they receive from their skill-based amusement games probably exceed the sales of alcohol. So that would make them not fall under this exception if they were hosting poker games. The one thing that the commission has seen that we've really struggled with is what we're finding is these aren't, in a lot of places, these aren't organic social games that are being played at a bar. These are being advertised as a draw to get customers into these locations in hopes to increase the sales on the alcohol. So that, I think that is, again, that's a policy question for you all, how you want that to look. Again, I'd stand for any questions on this, but that's one thing to maybe consider is how that works. You know, OTBs are off-track wagering facilities. Their sole purpose is, you know, wagering activity. So they would clearly not fall in this exemption, so you wouldn't walk into an OTB and see a poker table, because it's very clear that the majority of their proceeds are from gaming. Some of these other ones, it could be questionable, and it could teeter on maybe being exempt or maybe not being exempt. And also, Mr. Chairman, if I may, to Representative Johnson's point or question earlier, the way that we look at fraternal organizations, we do look at that as a bona fide social relationship. Those folks are members of, you know, for example, a VFW. They have a common goal. They're all veterans of foreign wars. They have that relationship outside of any sort of gaming. That's not what the primary purpose of a VFW or an Eagles or an Elks is. So we look at that as a bona fide social relationship.
Representative Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we just scratched out business on line 19, it would be private and fraternal. It would take bars and pubs out of the equation. Is that, I'm just asking a question, and maybe that's what we need to do.
Director?
Chairman Cole, Representative Johnson, I believe that's what that would do. That would make it, you know, buddies playing poker at their house or at a, you know, a bona fide fraternal organization, an Elks and Eagles, a VFW, things of that nature.
Thank you, Representative. Director, do you have any suggestions for language changes that would make this more suited to your, I guess,
Chairman
the
Cole.
issue of prosecution, I guess I'd say, or enforcement of said law?
Chairman Kolb, so the one thing that I would suggest, and this is just based on conversations that we've had with prosecutors and county attorneys and district attorneys, is that defining bona fide social relationship. That is the one that's come up multiple times in criminal cases that we've worked. With having a stipulation to having a bona fide social relationship with no definition of bona fide social relationship, that has proven to be kind of a hurdle that we've come across in every instance.
Thank you, Director. Senator Craigo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Director, just a quick question, going down this line, if you take the language out regarding operations at a business or gambling at a business, does the bona fide social relationship become as is important? Because as you just described, if we're talking fraternal organizations, that the commission sees that as a bona fide social relationship. If you're having a poker game at your house, most likely you know everybody that's getting invited to your home. So does that become as important if you were to change the language regarding at a business?
Chairman Kolb, Senator Craigo, I don't believe it does become as important. Because as to your point, you know, if you're going to have a game at your house, one would hope that you're going to only invite people that you know, trust and have somewhat of a relationship with into your home. Same thing, and with a fraternal organization, they do have a relationship. They're members of a club for the purpose of being a member of a club, whether it be an Eagles or an Elks or a VFW or so on.
Director, so to follow up on that, so you don't see any issue of striking the word business out of there. What are your thoughts on that?
Chairman Kolb, that's a policy decision for you. I don't have.
No punting, Director.
I don't have,
Well,
I
just
won't speak one way or the other. How's
Okay,
that?
well, thank you. And Tamara, do you have an opinion about striking? Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, hold on a second there, Senator.
okay.
I guess go first there, Tamara.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, I don't have an opinion on the policy of whether you should be able to conduct gambling at a business, but I will point out the beginning of this sentence is conducted in a private manner. And as I thought about that, and as we worked this into the exemption, a lot of social gambling can take place on your phone, or perhaps you're picking the team for the pool you want to win. You might be at work, you might be in the park, you might be at home in bed, you might be in your armchair. So there was more involved than just trying to limit the places, because now, gaming doesn't need a table. You can make a wager with friends on your handheld device. And so that's where the in a private manner, at a private place, or at a business or fraternal organization came in. So if you strike business from this, you still would be allowed to conduct social gaming in a private manner. And one might argue that if they're in the back room at a bar and they're close to the public, that that's private. So if the intent is to prohibit social gaming at a bar or a place that sells liquor or a place that sells food, a business establishment, et cetera, then we might need to carve out, make that clear that gaming is not allowed in those places, period. So it's more than just striking businesses. I'd recommend a conceptual amendment that I can put in if that's the intent.
All right, thank you. Senator Crago first, then Senator McEwen second.
Mr. Chairman, Tamara just answered my question for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question's about the poker clubs that are showing up. Is that a social bona fide relationship or not? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Tamara, any, do you have an answer for Senator McEwen?
Well, I think I might let the Gaming Commission take this, who's dealt with enforcement of those.
All right, Nick, would you like to take this?
Thank you, Chairman Kolb. That is the question that keeps coming up, because that is one of the defenses that we hear now. We have a poker club, so because this is a club, we do in fact have a bona fide social relationship. So that's kind of where a lot of this discussion has stemmed from, is being able to define that social relationship as being not a relationship that is derived from the game itself. So these poker clubs, you're generating a social relationship for the sole purpose of gambling, and that's all it is.
Thank you, Director. Further questions? Co-Chair Line.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tamara, on page 2, where we were talking about the business, you mentioned that if they went to a back room, that may be deemed private. My question is, how far should we label it? Is it in the shop after a long day of work, they pull out a table and cards? Now that's a place of business, but people that work together. How would we regulate a warehouse or a shop, or an individual that is a great entrepreneur that has poker nights with several of his friends 4 or 5 nights a week at his private residence? How do we get to the point where we can keep an eye on all of it?
Tamara?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it'd be good to be direct if you can. So if what you're trying to prohibit is playing poker at a place that sells liquor or a place that sells food, then simply spelling that out, that it's not allowed. So it would be not conducted at a bar, at a restaurant, or anywhere with a liquor license, if that's the intent. Otherwise, you are right that if you take out business and you have private place, that's still a private business is probably going to fall under that private place, whether it's your personal garage, your basement, or the business that you own, and that you put up the closed sign and the employees sit around and start up a game of something or other. But all of these questions are really getting to the point of how difficult it is to define this, and it's hard to really accurately do that without everyone being on the same page of what they want to be allowed and what they don't want to be allowed. So I think if you can decide the policy you're trying to achieve, I can help you find that language that best targets it without having unintended consequences.
Thank you, Tamara. Director, just a quick follow-up on this topic. Do you see this bill draft, I mean, you've heard some of the I guess, issues that have come up as questions. Do you see this bill draft as making the situation better for you to enforce what we're trying to enforce in the state of Wyoming with we'll call it illegal gaming? Is this helping you or not helping you? What's your opinion about where this bill is at currently, this bill draft?
Thank you, Chairman Kolb. I think it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I think in some aspects, this definitely does help the commission. There is some of the language on page 2, lines 18 through 22, that still make it very difficult as far as, as I had spoke to earlier, if we've got poker tables and bars that have legal gaming as well, trying to differentiate the proceeds from the alcohol sales and the general business versus gaming revenues to ascertain if it is in fact exempt from that. One other thought that I actually just had in the conversation that was just taking place, I don't know if looking down on page 3, the not advertised or otherwise open to the public participation, if that would cover Co-Chairman Lean's question about, a business where after they finish work, they bust out a table and it's a bunch of employees playing a game, that wouldn't be open to public participation. That would just be a group of coworkers playing, and that might cover that. Just a thought.
Well, Director, listen, I don't by any stretch of my imagination think that we're going to get to something perfect that satisfies everybody on this planet. The question is more broad than that. Does this improve our current situation for you, bringing enforcement actions against folks that are out there doing the activities that you have troubles with currently enforcing? That's my broad question. I realize any bill we deal with isn't perfect, all right? I mean, in the pursuit of perfection will kill everything. Does this help you or not? I mean, that's a more broad question, and maybe it's unfair to spring that on you like this, but barring those, notable exceptions that we all have talked about issues, maybe we need to clean the language up a little bit. But in the direction this bill's going, is it making it worse? I mean, that's what I'm kind of wanting to know from you.
Chairman Kolb, so based on the conversation, if the business portion of this was struck out of it, it would make it much cleaner and much easier for the commission to take enforcement action on these games, quite honestly.
Well, thank you, Director. Further questions from the committee? Co-Chair Line?
Thank you. Tamara, on page 4, in the definition of profit, where it says any financial gain, would this include somebody that comes in with a bartering system? Say, we're not dealing with cash here, we're dealing with, we're gonna trade in a lawnmower or a vehicle or something with a motor on it. Will financial gain also impact that, or should it say economic gain? Is there a difference?
Tamara?
Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman, thank you. That's a good question. And I have looked into the plain language definition of financial gain, and I do think that it includes any kind of a benefit, not just currency, any kind of a financial benefit that makes you in a better financial position, equity, owner's asset, et cetera. Economic gain would, I think, be a little bit different. It's not currently used in statute, but do note that on page 2, excuse me, on page 3, line 6, we use the term economic benefit. So that is broader. One of the criteria for falling under the social exemption is that no person receives any economic benefit. That is different than the definition of profit and the term used there, any financial gain. And so I think economic benefit is broader. It could be an increase in sales, more business because of the game, whereas profit is a direct, it's no longer includes the word direct, but it's a financial gain.
Thank you. Senator Crago?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Tamara, just so we're all kind of on the same page, I mean, if we pull up the whole statute, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we're defining profit, but profit falls under the definition of professional gambling, right? Is that the only place I see it within the definitions? It's a further clarification of professional gambling, which has a different penalty than just regular gambling. Am I reading that right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Okay. And so can you explain to us, just as we read the statute there, the difference between gambling, professional gambling, and why we have different penalties? And this might pull in the director as well, just as I'm reading, because it's complicated. I mean, to your point, your opening remarks about this whole statutory framework is very complicated. And how do we differentiate between gambling, professional gambling? Because as I read that, there's not going to be a whole lot of difference. I mean, it becomes statutorily vague to some degree as I'm reading it, but maybe fill us in a little bit, because as we're talking about profit, it's important we know what the word means and where it's applied in the statute.
Cameron?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, that's right. And at our last meeting, we did have a couple more definitions in front of us. And you have those in your meeting material, more of the definitions within the criminal code that related to gambling. And that's where it was simply suggested by the stakeholders that we simplify this definition of profit, and profit does relate to what is professional gambling. And the statute's developed in a way that professional gambling was criminalized. I will have to look up the actual penalty, the years, the felony that's involved, the years of the fine and the criminal years that you could be in prison for professional gambling. But this simplification of profit does somewhat change that concept of professional gambling.
Follow up?
Yeah. Follow up, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. So maybe a question for the director. As far as enforcement, how often are we enforcing professional gambling versus run-of-the-mill gambling? And just for the public's edification, regular gambling is a misdemeanor, 6 months, fine of $750. Professional gambling is 3 years and a fine of $3,000.
Director?
Thank you, Chairman Cole, Senator Crago. So the professional gambling, I think the easiest way for me to do this is just to kind of lay it out. So if I were to create a poker hall and I'm aiding or inducing my players to come in so I can get a profit from them, I, as the owner of the poker hall, am guilty of felony professional gambling. However, all of those people at the table are also guilty of a misdemeanor crime of gambling because they're taking part in a gambling that's not an exception to current state law. One of the other parts of the professional gambling statute is actually, it would be like card sharking or professional cheating in a poker game. So if we're playing a poker game and I'm caught cheating under this, that would be professional gambling as well.
Follow up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so as I read the definition of professional gambling, it says aiding or inducing another to engage in gambling with the intent to derive a profit therefrom. So let's say I'm hosting that, but what if I'm also one of the participants, right, at one of the illegal games by definition, and I'm trying to induce people to come to my game and I end up winning them, and that, do I then become a felon as well? Even though I didn't quote unquote host the game, I induced others to engage in that activity and I profited therefrom. So I don't know if the definition we have for profit, although it's complicated and hard to enforce, I don't know if changing it to only financial gain creates another issue for just the mere participants in the game, who right now, under current statute, we prosecute as misdemeanors. We would then prosecute them as felons under the new definition, I think. So just your thoughts on that and how that plays together.
Thank you, Chairman Cole, Senator Crago. That's not the way that we have ever looked at that, but you make a very good point. If I have a group of friends and I'm aiding them or inducing them to come gamble so I can take their money, that would be considered under the current definition of professional gambling, even if it's a game amongst friends. The way that we have, looked through this and attempted to enforce this, it's the advertising of games and the the intentional drawing of a crowd with that intent to derive a profit from that game. That's the way that we have looked at it. We haven't looked at it as, a group of friends trying to get other friends to play, hoping that they can take their friends' money. We've just looked at it more from a commercial aspect than than that social game.
Thank you, Nick. I guess they're not very good friends, are they?
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
Well,
Probably not.
Yeah, well, not my definition.
Mr. Chairman.
Have you ever prosecuted, Director?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Troy. Hang on a second. Hang on. I'll get you next.
I know if you noticed me.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't, but I do now. Thank you. Director, have you ever prosecuted anybody under under these circumstances that we just discussed? What's the history been?
Chairman Kolb, so we have actually gained 2 successful felony prosecutions for professional gambling based on the aiding and inducing part of it. We also had another case here in this county that it became difficult to prosecute that case to the fullest extent because of some of the language, i.e. the profit and the bona fide social relationship. So that one it was closed, but it was not proceeded criminally.
Thank you, Director. Senator McEwen? You're muted, Senator. Senator McEwen, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
It seems to me maybe we could make the bill a little sleeker. And I'm kind of going down the same path Senator Crago went down. What if we just defined it as profit? Instead of trying to develop the different gaming rules, what if we just said if you're making a profit, you're breaking the law, and if you're not, you're not? Does that become simpler for enforcement, and does it keep us out of the quote gaming state definition? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. Tamara, do you have a comment about that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senator. I think that was somewhat how the original definition, or at least an aspect of it, was included. The old language for the exemption for social gaming used to include in which no person is participating directly or indirectly in professional gambling, and professional gambling meant to make a profit. So that would sort of be going back to the status quo, but you still had those other elements of social relationship and participated by natural persons. I do want to comment on page 4, lines 4 through 10. I think the intent of what was suggested by the stakeholders was just to simplify a somewhat convoluted definition. And this language that is stricken out on line 4, profit means benefit other than gain. Perhaps that could be reinserted to deal with some of the problems that were raised by Senator Crago. Gain is defined, and we could simplify this as well, but gain is defined as meaning the direct realization of winnings. So profit, without the stricken language, would mean a benefit other than the direct realization of winning. So if you're trying to gather your friends together because you know you're better at them than poker and you want to win some of their money, you would not be making a profit if all that you're making is the direct realization of winnings. But if you're charging them to enter your garage a $100 buy-in, that would be a financial gain. That was not the direct realization of winning. So I guess just to summarize again, perhaps striking benefit other than gain might have broadened the definition of profit more than what was intended in an attempt to simplify it.
Quick follow-up.
Yeah, go ahead, Senator.
So I sell bananas and I sell them for a profit. I have a game with my friends, and they are my friends, but I still want their money during the game. And I go back to isn't profit really the definition? And then couldn't we go after the gaming houses that are doing it for profit? And be very simple about it. Just your opinion on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Tamara?
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Chairman, yes, I think we could simplify things. The way that existing statute read is that it kind of went after, it called it professional gambling, and it was intended to go after the gaming houses. And maybe that just added too much confusion. We're creating too many words and then creating definitions of them, and maybe just more simply trying to prohibit profiting from gaming without calling it professional gambling, because that does confuse the matter a little bit. You think of a professional gambler as somebody who spends all their time in Las Vegas making money instead of thinking about it as somebody who's just making a profit from gambling, which is how it is defined.
Thank you, Tamara. It's getting clear as mud. For further comments from the task force? Yeah, co-chair line.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, on the lines of profit, if we change that to an economic gain, is that better or worse for the commission for prosecution purposes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair. I think it makes it much clearer, much easier. The one thing that I will say in every gambling case that we've had in front of county attorneys or district attorneys, the current definition of profit has been a large contention, because it's extremely convoluted and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So simplifying that at the direction of several prosecutors that we've talked to would make it much easier.
Thank you, Director. Follow up? No? Okay. Any further comments from the task force? Seeing none, what would the task force like to do with the, oh, we had public comment? I thought we closed that from last time we had public comment. Well, then public comment it is. Please come on up, occupy the seats up here. When you come up, please state your name, who you may represent, and then give us your testimony. It's not on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Mike Mosier, Wyoming State Liquor Association. First of all, thanks to the LSO, Mr. Laramende, Mr. Thompson for working on this language. Let me point out a couple things about why we're not addressing, or at least in my opinion, why we're not addressing certain things. Bona fide social relationship was looked back at in 2007 when we last addressed these statutes. The reason it wasn't further defined is there's really no way to effectively enforce a bona fide social relationship. If I'm playing a poker game with all of you and law enforcement comes in and says, do you know so-and-so? I'll say, yeah, I went to high school with him and dated his sister. I've known him for years. Well, how do they really prove that? It's being able to enforce bona fide social relationship in 2007 was seen as unenforceable. I believe it still is. What this bill it is intended to do is create sideboards to not make anything that's currently legal illegal, but to make the illegal things easier to enforce. And that's part of the reason I wanted to come to the table in this. Nobody wants poker clubs. That's not the intent of anybody here. Nobody wants professional dealers coming to your local establishment and winning millions of dollars or making lots of money. So that's not really the idea. Also, defining poker is almost impossible. I remember when I was in the Army, there were a lot of guys that lost a lot of money playing spades. If any of you are old enough to remember spades, and that's not poker. So are we going to, and there's about, I think, a dozen official types of poker. So what we're addressing or trying to address is not allowing professional gambling while still allowing social gaming. And that's really the goal of what we want to do. This is an era of loopholes, whether it's loopholes that are seen in the law to allow a poker establishment to utilize, by the way, a social club, if you don't know this part of liquor law. If you get a club of 100 people paying $25 a year for a year, you can start a social club, get a limited retail liquor license, and that's what they were utilizing. So it's pretty easy to start a social club.
But on the other hand, and I'll get into that, that's part of the reason we drew some of these sideboards. Couple quick things. Obviously on page 2, lines 18 through 22, that got a lot of loving. The suggestion by Mr. Laramendi to remove the part about primary source of revenue, we're fine with that. The only reason we advocated putting that in there was to prevent the poker clubs or but on the other hand, there's other language in this bill that would prevent poker clubs. So if that's problematic, removing the last 3 lines, lines 20 through 22, if the Gaming Commission is more okay with that, we're perfectly fine. One of the reasons we wrote this, once again, supported it, was to allow what's currently legal while further making enforcement easier on what is considered illegal. Now, a quick point, Representative Johnson and Representative Webb proposed knocking out business. We've allowed social poker in businesses in Wyoming for the last 150 years. And so the last thing I think we want to do is make grandma and her friends felons or crooks for playing Texas Hold'em at coffee every morning. That's not the intent of what we want to do. We want to stop professional gaming. That's why business, now admittedly, as LSO correctly pointed out, private place could be seen as a business. I would rather have business in there for a point of clarification. Professional gambling is addressed otherwise. My retailers or the local restaurant and coffee shop would be going, wait a minute, we're allowing HHRs all over the state, but you just banned poker in my coffee shop? So I don't think we want to go there because that's currently allowed. What we're after is the bad guys. And so that's what, if you turn to page 3, the advertising part, once again, that's existing understanding to ban advertising. Back in the days when the Wyoming Liquor Division used to do gaming enforcement and not the Gaming Commission, that was their litmus test. If you're advertising, it's no longer a bona fide social relationship because you're looking for customers outside of your normal sphere. And so that's really what that's addressing. On page 3, lines 6 through 8, part of the reason we wanted to draw those lines about realizing economic development is there have been a loophole that some places have used that has said, hey, my bar isn't making a direct profit, but you can pay the dealer. And so you end up having professional dealers come in. We don't want that either. We want social games. We don't want professional dealers. And so we feel that closes that loophole. The rest of the language, how you define profit, I really don't care. If you want to put in further definitions of bona fide social relationship, you can. I just don't know how you enforce it once again. Because I don't know, this may be a surprise to some of you, but when you're drinking beer and playing poker, you're going to lie about how long you know somebody. And I don't know how enforcement is going to research that. What you want to do is say, you can't advertise, nobody can turn a profit, nobody can be a paid dealer, and that's the way the law is currently interpreted, but I think it makes life a lot easier for the Gaming Commissioner and our people. So that's really now the discussion about charitable. If you want to do a carve out for charitable, but when we did bingo and pull tabs, once again back in '07, you need to do a bunch of sideboards for that too, because then you get into, like we did with bingo, there has to be a certain percentage that goes to the charity, because we are seeing fly-by-nights that would come up, open poker parlors for 6 months, take 90% of the proceeds and give 1% to DARE or something. So if we codify charitable activities, it'll probably take more than just a carve-out. Other than that, committee, I appreciate the time. It was talked about this being a wide net. I was hoping this was a narrow net, because what we're trying to do is crack down on illegal professional gambling. And that's what I hope this bill does. And with that, I will take any questions, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Mosier. Senator Crago.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Mr. Mosier, for being here. So can you give us a definition of illegal professional gambling? I mean, what's that look like? And how do we catch only that?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Crago, that's kind of what this bill is directed at doing, because that's when people take profits, the House takes a cut. Not all the proceeds go back to us. If there's a group of 6 of us that are playing poker and all the winnings, like in this bill are distributed among the winners, it's a social game. Nobody's making a profit, and if you're not advertising it outside, you're not trying to entice customers to come in. That's the way poker's been done since we've had settlement in Wyoming. But as soon as you start having professional poker houses or professional poker games where the winners, or the house takes a cut, or the dealers take a cut, it's no longer just a social activity. I hope that gets where you're going.
We're good? Co-Chair Line?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for coming today, Mr. Mosier. You mentioned that you have people in a poker shop, in a coffee shop playing poker. Under what exemption are they playing this poker?
Mr. Chairman, Madam Co-Chair, it's a social game. Nobody's taking a cut, nobody's advertising. Same as the exemption of if we were playing in a bar. Bona fide social relationship.
Thank you, Mr. Mosier. Further questions? Seeing none, thank you for your work on this, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Representative Webb?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess the question I would have to ask is, what is the percentage of some of these coffee shops or some of these bar establishments that maybe play poker, but there's no wager in it? There's no wager involved in it versus those that are playing for keeps.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Webb, great question, because actually has anybody ever played penny poker? Some of you might have. Penny poker is where the wagers are a penny and there's obviously nothing but bragging rights. And so that's where the social games come in. I think you'll find a high percentage. I know of places where people come in and play cribbage, then they'll get bored, then they'll switch to rummy, then they'll switch to Texas Hold'em. And that's where the social aspect comes in. I don't know of a percentage. I think a lot. Especially just casual games. Every bar has a bunch of decks of cards, and if you're sitting around a little bored, you just grab the cards and play a couple games to just keep yourself interested. And in those cases, many times there is no wager except bragging rights, which to me is better than money anyway.
So would there
Good
be any?
follow-up.
Yeah, thank you, sorry. Would there be any problem with doing something to the effect of including non-wagerable poker games or?
Mr. Chairman or Representative Webb, we would still oppose that because like it goes back to penny poker, or if you wager $1 or $10. The vast majority of poker that I've seen in bars, and I may represent them, but I don't hang out in them all the time, don't involve large wagers. They involve 10, 20 bucks, not a big deal. And so I'm not sure if we really want to address that or how you'd enforce that. I think the big thing is to keep the professional aspect out, at least in my opinion.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mosier. No further questions. I guess I'll want to ask, because I don't really know you, ma'am. Do you, just to see, you represent anyone, like a lobbyist or anything? Well, I was going to have the order just for the audience, that if you're a lobbyist or representative, that you would go, we would have those go first, and then general public would go next.
I'm the district attorney for Laramie County.
Well, then I guess, thank you for clarification.
So I represent the people of Laramie
Well,
County.
thank you for coming.
So, but I am happy to defer.
No,
You walked
no.
faster than
No, I just didn't know you, ma'am. You go right ahead, and counsel, and tell us what you need us to know.
Thank you. Well, I am the infamous prosecutor that has the case to which Mr. Laramendi referred that was not prosecuted here in Laramie County. And in part, it was, in fact, because of the statutory definitions or lack thereof. That's why I'm here, and I'm speaking solely for myself, though I have talked to some of my colleagues around the state. And I agree with what Mr. Laramendi said. The definition of gambling, the definitions of bona fide social relationship, clarifying all of that, and I think this bill goes a long way towards doing that, would be very helpful. Let me give you an example. If someone comes to my office and says, I need to prosecute Joe Smith for first-degree murder, then what the statute tells me is that I have to find that he purposely and with premeditated malice killed a human being. So I know exactly what I have to prove. I have to prove purpose, premeditation, malice, and a death. If, on the other hand, I'm looking at prosecuting someone for gambling, professional gambling, then I wade through a very short statute and 4,000 definitions. I know this has developed over the years, as often happens with legislation. And as Mr. Laramendi mentioned, what we ran into was the bona fide social relationship and the poker club issue. I mean, I even got emails from people telling me I should be ashamed of myself for prosecuting such enterprising individuals. And it was like, well, I'm not doing it yet, but thank you for being ashamed of me. Or I should be ashamed of myself, whatever. But that was my concern. What these individuals did, and this is how I think a poker club has to be created, they paid a membership fee for the purpose of gathering together to play poker. And that, according to their counsel, was a bona fide social relationship. To which I responded, I pay a membership fee to Sam's Club. Does that mean I have a bona fide social relationship with the other 5,000 people in Cheyenne who have Sam's Club memberships? I don't think the payment of a membership fee to walk in the door of an establishment, whatever that establishment does, creates a bona fide social relationship. But we had nothing else to go on. And then I appreciate the change in the definition of profit, because I felt like I was chasing my tail and trying to figure out how to parse out, okay, of this amount of money that gets you in the door versus this amount of money that lets you sit at the table versus this amount of money that gets collected every X amount of minutes. What goes to profit? What stays with the organization? What goes to the players? It was, here was how I looked at it. And I'm not a gambler, by the way, although I have individuals in my office who are familiar with it and explained every step of it to me. But I said, how do we convince a jury? And that's ultimately the question that always comes to my mind. Can I convince a jury of 12 people that this person violated this statute? We weren't even sure we could pull together enough information to get it past a preliminary hearing, much less to and through a jury, because of the definitions that weren't there. I think these definitions, as Mr. Laramendi has already stated, will help the commission. The more direction the commission can give through rules and regulations, the more definitions you can provide through the legislature, I think the easier it makes it for me and my colleagues, because I want to do the right thing. But I'm not going to prosecute people if I know I can't make the case. It's a violation of the ethical rules for prosecutors. So I applaud this effort. And Mr. Chairman, as you said, it's not perfect, but it's a step, and I support it. And I am speaking solely for myself, not the Wyoming Prosecutors Association. But thank you for the opportunity, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you for coming in. Thank you very much for your testimony. It's invaluable for somebody who actually is dealing with this.
Trying to.
And had the issues. And I don't think you're a bad person. So contrary to your emails, we are all in the same boat sometimes, but I get it. But thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Questions? Anyone? Representative Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for showing up today. Tell us what catchphrase we should put in here to help you out. When you couldn't define a bona fide social relationship, what definition would have helped you out in that situation? Is there one, or can you help us out? I'm fishing.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Johnson, I think what you've done in this, or what is proposed in this draft legislation, to exclude, for example, a club that exists solely for the purpose of gambling or gaming, is extremely helpful, because it says, if you come together just for this purpose, that's not a bona fide social relationship. So that, I think, is probably as helpful as anything could be.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Johnson. Co-chair line.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your personal opinion, would it make a difference if it said a financial gain or an economic gain when you're talking about a profit?
Mr. Chairman, Madam Co-Chairman, I don't think so, but I can guarantee some very adept criminal lawyer will find a way to argue that, and then we'll just find a way to argue against it. So I believe that is a policy decision on your part.
Thank you, Co-chair. Thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, thank you. Please maybe stay around if you don't mind, because something might come up that during this conversation that you could comment on, and we'd appreciate those comments.
I will certainly do so. Thank you.
You're welcome. Sir, representing WASCOP, go on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Alan Thompson. I'm the Executive Director at WASCOP, Wyoming Association of Sheriffs and Chiefs of Police. And we've been asked to kind of be part of this discussion in between these two meetings to help provide definitions and input to LSO and the quasi-working group. You know, I would just like to say that our membership over the past several years with the expansion and professionalism of the Gaming Commission really don't have a direct involvement in most gambling issues within their community. You know, talking to our members, you know, they want to have clear definitions and understandable statute. But in most cases, the Gaming Commission would be the ones investigating most of these crimes, like professional gambling especially. So with that said, anything that we can do to clear up the language within the statute for law enforcement to better understand it, we're in support of. And we attempted to be part of that conversation, and I'm not sure that we come out with what the committee was looking for, but we just appreciate the opportunity to be part of that discussion and just, you know, and have a position either way on specific language that you're discussing today, but I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have for us.
Thank you for your work. Thanks, Alan. Further questions for the task force? I don't see any. I did have a question for you, though. Can't let you get away with nothing. So are there instances, I realize the Gaming Commission deals with a lot of these law enforcement issues, but at a local level with your members, have you had issues where you had something that you couldn't get prosecuted, or maybe things that you don't even deal with because they are a social game in someone's house or some locality that doesn't rise to the level of your concern? I mean, just what's been the experience? Do you have any information on the past years?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, so going back 20 years, intermittently throughout those, you know, last couple of decades, we've had issues come up in trying to parse through definitions and application of the law. You know, most recently, it doesn't seem like it's very widespread amongst the members across the state, but you see some localized issues. So you'll talk to like law enforcement, local law enforcement members in Laramie County and Cheyenne PD, parsing through the case that we were discussing this morning. So I would just say that it's not where it was at with the discussion with skills gaming and the discussion with social poker going on in bars and businesses across the state, say 20 years ago, were probably more widespread than what you see today. And today would be more quiet and under the radar in a small town that you don't even know exists, because it really is probably subject to a bona fide social relationship, or where population bases are bigger, and then you kind of see the more front-facing, forward-facing part of that. So, but in the last couple of years, I would say that it hasn't been high on the radar of local law enforcement.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for being here. No further questions. Further public comment? Anyone else wish to come up? And seeing none. Anybody online? No? Senator McEwen, did you have anything to say?
I'm good. Thank you.
All right. All right, let's close public comment. Task force, What be your pleasure? Co-chair line? Oh. Representative Webb.
Well, I think we need to move the bill for discussion.
Okay. Bill's been moved and seconded. I don't know if we need a second, but it's been moved and it's on the table. Further discussion on the bill. Representative Webb.
I just want to be on record saying that I have some concerns with this. I think that we do live in an era of loopholes. This is, as has been testified to, it's a difficult situation. It's complicated to define things. And I'm wondering if we're just trying to rationalize ourselves into legalizing poker clubs and poker generally. I don't have a problem with friends getting together to play at somebody's house. But in 2012, 2013, we allowed HHR. Look where we're at today with that. I just have to wonder what we're doing for the future of our state by allowing these kind of things. My constituents say that they don't want their towns and their cities to become like the border towns of Nevada. And therefore, I think that we ought to make this as strict as we can and allow it for friends and or family, but that's it.
Thank you, Representative Webb. So, and I don't disagree with those comments. In general, that's what we're trying to do. Getting there is not such a straight road, though. So at this point in time, does anyone have any amendments to offer to this proposed bill draft? Senator Crago?
So, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we add an amendment defining bona fide social relationship. The definition is on lines 21 through 26 on page 3. Tamara talked about that. So I would move that we add that as an amendment to the bill.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. That amendment has passed. Next, any further amendments? Representative.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I didn't see your hand up there, Troy.
That's
Excuse me,
okay.
Senator McEwen. I'll give it to Representative Webb first, and then you go second.
I would propose that we on page 2, lines, starting with line 18, that we, well, I guess starting with line 19, we delete everything after or at a business or fraternal organization, clear down through line 22. And even think about removing the words a private place or at a private place.
All right, do we have a second? Seconded by Co-Chair Line. Further discussion, Senator Crago. Well, I guess we'll wait. Senator McEwen, we're going to wait because we have an amendment on the table. Senator Crago?
I was going to ask if the good representative could repeat exactly what the amendment was. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I would think for right now, let's just leave line 18 and put a period after private place.
So to be clear, you're striking everything on page 2, line 19, after place, all the way down to the bottom. Is that correct, Representative Webb?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. We clear? Then further discussion on this proposed amendment. Senator Crago.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I'm going to vote on it, Mr. Chairman, and I'm not sure it gets to where we want to go. I mean, I think we've heard testimony, and I tend to agree with some of it. A back room in a business still might be considered a private place. That could also be conducted in a private manner. You could come in a back door and no one would even know you're there. So I don't know again, to the complexities of this issue, I think I know where we're trying to go with that. I just don't know if that gets us there. I mean, it would prevent two friends from getting together and playing cards out in the front part of a business coffee shop, as Mr. Mosier talked about. It would probably prohibit that, but it's not necessarily going to prohibit a poker room in the back of a business when after hours, for example. I don't know if that's where we're wanting to go or what we're wanting to do. Just throwing that out there. I'm not saying it's a bad amendment, just making clear that I'm not sure it covers everything.
Representative Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I kind of have a hard time with that because that would exclude businesses and fraternal organizations. I would rather that we just put the period at the end of organization. I don't want to exclude the businesses and those other and fraternal organizations. I would be more comfortable with that, I think. But then exclude line 20 through 23.
Well, okay, we could,
I'm-
I don't know what the rules are. Hold on a second. Representative Johnson
I don't
gets
know the
into an
rules-
area.
I don't know the rules either.
I know this, in this particular case about an amendment to an amendment, LSO, are we allowed to handle it that way?
Mr. Chairman, a mover can bring an amendment to an amendment, but I'm not sure if this would be considered friendly to that original amendment or not.
Yeah, we could.
So you may want to vote on the first one and then bring the second one.
Thank you, Tamara. So I guess the first question, is it a friendly amendment? Do you consider it friendly, Representative Webb?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My intent is with my amendment, is to exclude all of it other than friends getting together at somebody's house.
Oh, thank you for the clarification. It's not a friendly amendment. So let's just, we'll take it as not a friendly amendment. Now the question comes up, we have another amendment to the amendment proposed. Further conversation on the proposed amendment from Representative Johnson.
Should we vote on this amendment first and then?
No, I'm going to say we're going to vote on, we're going to vote. We can do it a couple different ways. Let's try it this way. We'll kind of learn as we go what might be the better way. There's a couple ways of handling this, to be clear about it. It gets real convoluted real quick if we have multiple amendments to amendments to amendments, all right? That's what we try to avoid, but I think one level deep, I think I can handle that. So let's just talk about your amendment that you're proposed to the standing amendment that was proposed by, so we're amending Representative Webb's amendment with your amendment, right? And then using what you just gave us language for. And would you repeat that again for everybody so we're clear?
So we would keep or. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We would keep or at a business or fraternal organization, period.
Okay, then we strike everything from there on out. So that'd be basically we strike lines 20, 21, and 22.
Yes.
That's what it would amount to, right? Is that correct? Okay, so further discussion on this proposed amendment to the amendment. We have a co-chair line.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My thought would be, would these already be included under a bona fide social relationship? Because a fraternal organization, as we heard, would be a bona fide social relationship.
What say, Representative Johnson, it's your amendment. What's your opinion?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that fraternal organization would be a bona fide social relationship, but a business would not. If you had a coffee shop, you wouldn't want to exclude those people like we've heard. So I would like to include business in there. And I don't think that the fraternal organization hurts any at all if we leave it in there.
Further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor of Representative Johnson's amendment, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed indicate same sign.
No.
No.
That amendment to the amendment fails. We're back on the original amendment. Further discussion on your amendment, Representative Webb?
I guess I would like to know okay, mine is that we have the period after private place. I'd like to know other feelings on it.
Well,
Does that need to be?
okay. All right, then further discussion on this proposed amendment. Seeing none. All in favor of this proposed amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying same sign. Aye.
Aye.
That amendment has failed. 3 in favor and 4 against. We're back on the proposed bill draft. Further amendments to proposed bill draft.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry there, Senator McEwen. Would you please go on?
No, I understand. It's hard to pay attention to the computer screen. That's why I apologize for not being there. I'm gonna need help from Tamara with this, because I'm not sure exactly the language it needs to go in. But I think I would like to say for profit becomes, do we call it professional gambling or whatever? But if the poker houses, if they're doing it for profit, it should be in the bill that they can't. And I think there's 3 or 4 different places where we'd have to do that. So could I ask Tamara for her help? Phone a friend, maybe?
So I guess you're proposing an amendment? Then we'll discuss that amendment that would clarify for profit?
Yes.
That kind of, okay. All right, so,
And the reason I do that is that it also simplifies the Gaming Commission's job. And I really think that's where we're getting at. We don't want gambling houses that are making money, but we do want to allow social interaction. It seems to me might be oversimplified, but it seems to define the problem and gets us further down the road, Mr. Chairman.
all right, thank you, Senator McEwen. Is there a second on this proposed amendment? Seconded by Representative Johnson. Further discussion? Senator Crago?
Mr. Chairman, I guess I'm not sure what I'm voting on. I'd like a little bit of clarification before I vote aye or no on, I mean, I don't disagree with what the good senator said. I just would like to know where we're putting it, kind of a rough idea of what the conceptual amendment is before I vote on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Crago. And I think that's what we're going to work on right now, is the line. I mean, maybe the order's a little bit screwy, but Tamara, I guess, are you clear about the intent of Senator McEwen, and do you have any idea about what we can do to, I guess, conform to this request for this amendment?
Thank you, Senator. Let me propose a change, and Senator, please let me know if this accomplishes your intent. It would be on page 2, gambling does not include any of the following: any game, wager, or transaction, do away with social relationship, keep participated in by natural persons only, and then add in which no person makes a profit other than the direct realization of winnings. So again, we would not have any of the new language on page 2 or 3, and it would just be any game, wager, or transaction participated in by natural persons only, in which no person makes a profit other than the direct realization of winnings.
Yes, ma'am, that's exactly what I'd like to do. And I'm glad you did it, because I would have chopped it up.
All right. Thank you, Tamara, for your help. Further discussion? Senator Crago.
So, Mr. Chairman, question for Tamara. So according to what you just said, we'd take out the requirement that there be a social relationship. Is that what you just said?
Yes, Senator, that's what I heard, the intent being.
Follow up, Senator Craigo?
Well, I think that Mr. Chairman, I think that that would take us in the completely opposite direction of where I think most of the committee was wanting to go. That's why I guess I wanted to know what the proposed amendment was before we voted on it. So I'll be a no on that, that direction. I mean, I think there's some way to limit what we're trying to do without doing that.
Thank you, Senator Craigo. Senator McEwen?
Yeah, and maybe I've oversimplified it, but the simple fact is we have the social relationship definition. We heard from the Gaming Commission who says that's impossible to really enforce. But if somebody's making a profit, we've shut down the gaming houses and not put everybody in a terrible situation of determining a social relationship. Me and my buddies are out in my yard and we tie two shoes together and bet $5 who can get it over the tree or the power line. Nobody's making money off that, so the social relationship still exists. The fraternal relationship still exists. The business relationship still exists up to the point where somebody's making money. And once again, it might be oversimplified, but it seems to me it's an enforceable amendment that gets done what we want to do, and it cleans it up a little bit. I don't know why we want social relationship in there if there's no profit. Doesn't matter, and that's my question.
Thank you, Senator Senator McEwen. Senator Craigo?
So I guess the way I read this, Mr. Chairman, is once we do that, so remember, we just had an amendment to this bill to further define social relationship, which would get rid of the social gambling or gaming clubs, whatever you want to call them. That would prevent those clubs from being in existence. But by doing this, what we do is you allow gaming on a much higher level, because we could have guys getting together for poker games. They don't even have to know each other. They can roll into any business they want and have the biggest stakes poker game known to man. And there would be no prohibition against that. And the way this current amendment would read is, as long as the establishment hosting the game wasn't getting any money from the game itself, it would be legal to host the game. But they could be selling all the alcohol, they could charge an entry fee for people to come watch, as long as they're not making money from the game itself. And I guess I don't think that's where we're wanting to go. Maybe we are, I might be wrong about that, but I think that's what the amendment would actually do. And so that's why I'd probably be voting against it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Craigo.
So I would add, if there's a way to clean that up, I would consider that a friendly amendment. But I'd also add that people can get together in the back room of a business right now and bet as much as they want. The world's largest sums. There's nothing in this bill that controls that, regardless. So if you have some suggestions, Senator Craigo, please help me out.
Thank you, Senator McEwen. Senator Craigo, suggestions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any suggestions, but I would say that there is something in the bill that limits and right now, under the bill, you at least have to know each other before you get together and play poker. You can't just gather in Cheyenne and from all over the world to have a big high-stakes poker game. You at least have to know each other, and we're about to take that out pursuant to the amendment.
Thank you, Senator Craigo. Co-Chair Line?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tamara, is it my understanding that this amendment would then do away with those coffee shop relationships that are playing cribbage or poker or dice?
Tamara?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So let me talk this through. This amendment, gambling would mean risking any property for gain contingent in whole or in part on chance. So first you have to be risking property. If you're just playing poker without risking property, none of this even comes into play. But generally, gambling where you are involving a wager would be illegal, but what would be accepted would be any game, wager, or transaction that's participated in by natural people in which no one makes a profit. So other than the direct realization of winning. So you do open up, I think a good point that has to be considered is the fact that individuals go to the coffee shop and they happen to play there, or maybe they go there every week to play and wager a little bit of money. Is the business profiting because the people are coming to their business that has a nice cribbage board set up, or a nice deck of cards that they enjoy sitting at? And that is one of the struggles with enforcement. So I think that this amendment doesn't fundamentally change that issue. It would still be allowed as long as nobody is, there's no dealer, there's no actual direct profit, an entry fee on its face. But it's very difficult for these fees. You happen to charge coffee at $45 a cup during the hours when cribbage is played, or something like that. It's really hard to get into that with the enforcement, which is sort of why all of these elements were developed and proposed to try to narrow the exception. Remember that right now, any game, wager, or transaction under law, as long as you say you're friends and you're natural persons and nobody's professional gambling, it's legal. That's the current status quo. This bill draft is attempted to create and narrow 5 elements to limit that. And now this amendment sort of simplifies it to just be based on the profit issue.
Thank you, Tamara. I guess I'll add something into this conversation. And I was much the same as you, Senator McEwen, about this whole bona fide social relationship conundrum and how it really doesn't work very well. However, there's value to it, I think I found out, even though I originally didn't think there was much value. I thought it was more trouble than it was worth. But there's value in defining it in a way that we don't bring in other folks that we don't intend to bring in to prosecute. I think there is value for it. I do find it is actually probably not perfect. I think I'll admit that. However, it's a great stride forward into what we currently have. And I think that's why I'm still in favor of this bill draft in whole. I appreciate your attempt because I do agree with you. It is problematic. However, you cause more problems sometimes than you solve, right? And maybe we can work on this language, to clean it up a little bit and maybe tighten it up on the sideboards so it encompasses more of your intent, frankly, maybe more of my intent, but without bringing in folks that we don't intend to bring in, like to prosecute. We want to try to get after the main core issue here, the professionals, and then have a better definition that they don't get out of jail, in some cases by jail. They don't get out of prosecution by loopholes in our statutes. So I think the problem we got here is with this particular amendment is the intent is good, but the outcome maybe has unforeseen consequences that I think maybe we didn't consider fully because the time that we now have to talk about it. I think, we could further talk about this, but I think the bill is still valuable to draft. And what it does still on whole improves the situation than what we currently have. So it's better than what we have right now by a long shot. Imperfect as it is, which I don't know, the pursuit of perfection, the pursuit probably kills about everything sometimes. So maybe we want to lay this thing back to another meeting if it becomes a sticking point at the end of this conversation. But at this point, I don't support the amendment because of those reasons, not because it's the intentions, but because of what it does as unforeseen consequences. And that's my concern about it. So we'll further discuss this. We'll see how this goes. I guess, is there any further comment about this proposed amendment? Seeing none.
Just one last thought.
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Senator McEwen.
Can we put "and social bona fide relationship" in there? We might as well have it. We can't enforce it. They've admitted we can't enforce it, but it seems to be a sticking point and important. So let's put that in there too, maybe,
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman.
okay, thank you, Senator McEwen. Tamara, comments about that?
Mr. Chairman and Senator, I think we may have, if you put back in bona fide social relationship, we might have, the language I proposed might not be carrying out your intent, because essentially what you would be doing then is just taking out the private manner, private element, as well as taking out the don't advertise element. So that doesn't seem like how you originally phrased the motion if you amend your motion in that manner. I think maybe what you're targeting is more on page 3, lines 4 through 8. The existing element proposed by the bill draft is in which no person receives any economic benefit from the game, wager, or transaction other than the direct realization of winnings. Maybe what you're suggesting is just to narrow that to use more profit language than the current proposed language. But I'm not sure what you want to do with those elements of not advertising and conducting it in a private manner or private place.
I would also be good with changing that from economic whatever to profit. If they're not making money and we put that in that place instead of where we suggested initially, that would work for me too.
All right, thank you, Senator McEwen. Do you withdraw your amendment, or do you want to vote for this? What's your pleasure? I'll leave it up to you.
I will withdraw it and we'll go to 4 through 8 and change economic gain to profit.
All right, this is a second. I think it was me who seconded, so I'll withdraw my second. So that's been withdrawn. There's a new amendment proposed, and could you restate that amendment again for clarity's sake, Senator McEwen?
It basically gets rid of economic gain and replaces it with the word profit. I think it's okay
Page 3, line 6.
for a coffee shop to allow people to come play cribbage, and I don't think they should be penalized if they're selling more coffee.
All right, thank you, Senator McEwen. So we're on page 3, line 6, and striking the, I guess, replacing economic benefit for profit. Is that what it was?
Exactly.
Tamara? Comment?
Yes, that's how I have it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Further discussion? Is there a second on this proposed amendment?
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion on this proposed amendment. Task Force, co-chair line.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask for clarification from Ella? So if we change this to say receives any profit from the game, that profit then is defined as any financial gain. Is that correct?
Tamara?
Mr. Chairman, yes, as proposed under this current bill draft, if you don't amend that definition further, that's on page 4, lines 4 through 10.
Further discussion? Representative Webb?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to know if Co-Chairman Lean is, I know there was a discussion about economic benefit versus profit. Are you okay with that?
Co-chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My personal preference is that we move it to any economic gain, just so that the Gaming Commission has a vast net that they can use to prosecute any illegal gaming or gambling. So really, it would be consistent language with what is currently in the bill. But if the committee has a pleasure to leave it as a financial gain, I still believe that we're headed in the right direction for the Gaming Commission to be able to prosecute.
Senator Crago?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're going to end up playing a lot of word games because gain is defined in the statute separately, and it pertains to winnings and winnings alone. And so when we start talking about gain and all these other places within the statute, I think we're going to create a lot of constitutional issues on what constitutes gain, what doesn't constitute gain. And I don't know if you remember, but the director was up here talking about elements of a crime, right? Like when you go to actually prosecute something, you have to prove A, B, C, D, down the list. Well, when A starts referring to E and E starts referring to C, and it becomes very complicated for the director and his people to prosecute these claims, these cases. And so I don't know the answer. I'm not sure changing all these words around is going to help us. I think it might make it more difficult to actually enforce what we're trying to do than not. And so when you start using gain in different ways to mean different things within the same statute, you give people a way out. And when the defense lawyers are going to look at this and say, well, you tell me, prosecutor, what gain means. You get to prove it. It's on you to prove what gain means. And according to what we're trying to do, it might mean 3 different things. So I think we need to be super careful about using the word gain in more than one place. We can use lots of words, but gain becomes complicated because of how it's defined. If we're gonna use it, then we back to what Tamara said at the beginning. The statutory framework is difficult, and it's making it hard for us to work within that. And we're not making it any easier by using the word gain in multiple places, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Representative Johnson, thank you. Senator
Thank you,
Crago.
Mr. Chairman. And for Senator Crago, we want to use the same term throughout the bill. Is that what you're saying? Is that?
Senator Crago.
Mr. Chairman, it depends on how you're using it. So where we're proposing to use the word gain now, it means something totally different. It creates an element that we can't fulfill because of how it's defined somewhere else. If you're trying to prosecute it, gain means the direct realization of winnings. Well, here we're talking about who's hosting the actual event or games, right? They're not benefiting from the gain, the direct realization of winnings, but what we're saying is you can't charge a hosting fee and you're not making money off of the game. The coffee shop isn't making money off of the game itself, the direct realization of winnings, which is why the language probably is what it is, which is economic benefit. That's different than gain, which is a defined term within the current statutory framework. Does that make sense? So although we may not like all these terms, there's probably a reason they were chosen by LSO, because they don't want to essentially nullify the other definitions that are in the statute.
One last quick question, Mr. Chairman.
Hold on a second there, Senator. Hold on. I think Representative Johnson had to follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I got to apologize to Senator McEwen. I know it's difficult on Zoom because you do have a slight lag and you're not right in the conversation. So that's how I got ahead of you on this question. I just want to make sure that we try and use the same language throughout the bill so that we're not confusing future prosecutors or whatever. And I think that's what Senator Crago wants to do.
Yeah, and this is probably the reason why all these type of bills have failed in the past, is because of what we're now talking about. There's a lot of potholes out there. Senator McEwen.
So as we define the word economic gain, and they're playing cribbage or spades or whatever, or even poker in the coffee shop, if that coffee shop sells more coffee that morning because of the game, is that not an economic gain? So to me, and once again, I'll give it up to the lawyers who understand all this language better, but is that not an economic gain? Are we not trying to just end the profit of the games, or do we want to end coffee shops selling more coffee because they have the game? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator McEwen. I think that a point, though, if you look at the other side of the equation, If I said now my wages or whatever, the cost of doing business in my business establishment was now $1,000 where it used to be $1, and then your economic gain is wiped out. I think there's all sorts of other ways of looking at this that has the flip side of the argument is you're right if you clearly kept everything the same and it would be an economic gain, right? However, we're dealing with another layer of complexity. I just think you could just nullify your economic gain and say, nope, it wasn't an economic gain. So they got a loophole, right? If you look at the other side of this with profitability and cost. And that's what I would look at it as. And so I think these words, these terms of art that we're working with here are set in law. And whether we really truly understand them or not, because it looks on the face of it like, why are we using that word? Like, why we don't have more uniformity? Well, it's because there's other things that we have to consider. And like I say, once again, I don't disagree with what you're trying to do. I think it's the right thing that we all want to get to. But how we get there and make this bill work is always the, conundrum. So, well, with that further comment? Well, seeing none, all in favor of Senator McEwen's amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed? Aye. That amendment fails, Senator McEwen. And thank you for your input, though, Senator. This is all valuable. It's invaluable because these conversations are going to come up later about why the heck we did or we didn't do what this bill draft looks like. Irregardless of the outcome, these are all necessary conversations that, and I'll go back to what I said earlier. This is the reason why all these bills have failed. ALL has been this horrific, line of bills that didn't go anywhere because it's complex. It's
and Mr. Chairman, I'm going to support the bill. And it's going to be more words in the green books that nobody can enforce, nobody can do it with, but we didn't change much of anything.
Well,
but I'll still vote for it.
Well, thank you, Senator McEwen. Senator Crago?
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to see if maybe we could have our local district attorney come back up and just ask her quickly if she thinks we've made some progress by the amendments we have made, if it's going to make it, in particular, the bona fide social relationship, by defining that, if that's going to help her and the Gaming Commission regulate some of this.
Thank you. It looks like we have a volunteer coming up. Well, nobody tells anyone what to do. Go on, ma'am. Please restate for the record who you are, the Zoom people.
My name is Sylvia Hackle, and I'm the district attorney here in Laramie County. I think your amendments to bona fide social relationship are helpful. The discussion that you're having now, Mr. Chairman, Senator Crago, I agree. You don't want to use the very same phrase in 3 different places in the bill to mean 3 different things, because then there will be disagreement. And from my side, we don't want to have ambiguity or vagueness in the bill, because trust me, defense lawyers have a heyday with that. It was suggested that, and I didn't write this down, but instead of economic benefit, okay, I'm looking at page 3. Am I right? Okay, page 3, line 6. If I could, I'd like to ask Ms. Affie Ellis to come hand me her cheat sheet, because I didn't write down her language. May I do that?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Come on up, Council Ellis.
Thank you. Okay. Possibly change that economic benefit to something fees or payments derived from hosting or arranging the game. In other words, I think what you're trying to get to, and I believe that's what Director Laramendi spoke to, was you don't want poker houses where there are people gathering, I'm taking money from the person to my right to come into my establishment and just play poker. So instead of, and I can envision an argument from a defense lawyer that says, well, they just opened up. Of course, they're not making a profit, therefore they're not violating the law. That definitely could happen. So to reiterate, on page 3, beginning at line 6, delete economic benefit and add any fees or payments derived from hosting the game or organizing. And LSO can clean that up. But Mr. Chairman, I would encourage you to be as absolutely straightforward as you know how to be in this language, because it makes life easier for people like me, and I assume Mr. Laramendi and the commission as well. If you don't want this to occur, say it. And that's probably venturing more into policy territory than I should, but then I'm on the end of trying to enforce what you've passed. So I feel pretty strongly about that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Tamara, any comments about that thought? Perils by being more specific?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I think I have that down correctly, and that would be specific rather than trying to determine whether an economic benefit was realized because a game occurred in a business or an organization or at a private place. It would be to simply state that no person receives any fees or payments from hosting or organizing.
And Tamara, to follow up with that, you don't see any issue then of tightening up the sideboards into being more specificity for the economic benefit? That's my question. I'll get to you.
Well, Mr. Chairman, no, I don't see issues. I think every word you use, there's always a counter argument. Okay, no, we're not taking a fee for hosting the game, but there happens to be, you need to buy a sticker to be doing this, and the sticker is $200 a person, or something like that. There's always going to be that, but directly what you're specifically outlawing here, no longer making part of the exemption, is if somebody charges a fee or a payment. And I think that's pretty clear, about as clear as you can get.
All right, thank you, Tamara. Co-chair Line.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question would be, would it be feasible to say somebody was hired to be the dealer and they're not organizing and they're not hosting, but they're still making a profit? Would they then be a portion of the problem?
Tamara?
Mr. Chairman and Madam Co-Chairman, what you still have left in there is that in which no person receives any fee or payments from organizing or hosting other than the direct realization of winnings. So that's sort of multifold, belt and suspenders. No person receives a fee or payment other than the direct realization of winnings. So I think you do still have some of that element, but perhaps as I'm talking through it, I'm seeing that maybe you haven't dealt with the dealer, the house cut quite as clearly as before. But I think what you're trying to say is that nobody profits other than the person who wins that game.
Further questions? Senator Craigo?
I mean, we close one loophole, Mr. Chairman, and we open another. I mean, that's the issue, right? I mean, I appreciate the language. I was sketched out something similar, but it's hard to, the hosting does not cover the dealer, to the co-chairman's, point. And so I don't know what word we put in there, to cover that particular issue, because then you have, you have someone who, the host, right, of the event, the place of business happens to be the dealer, and that's how they make their money for hosting the event. And so we have to I think we have to figure out a way, because the way the language is written right now in the current draft, the dealer would dealers would be prohibited, professional dealers would be prohibited. But I don't think a dealer falls under hosting or organizing, as those terms are commonly, defined. So I think if we can figure out a way to include that so that we don't create that extra loophole, then I think that's a great amendment, and it kind of fixes the problem that everybody's talking about.
Co-chair line?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tamara, would it be a friendly amendment to add or executing the game at the end?
There's no amendment. Yes. Oh, Tamara?
Madam Chairman and Senator, thank you for the suggestions, and I'm trying to think on the fly and not always as articulate as I can be when I'm allowed to go back and quietly go through the words and look at the existing statutes and what other words are used in other places. Yes, I think you could get to the aspect of facilitating the game or even dealing or being employed by or somebody other than the player that is participating in that game, trying to ensure that they don't receive any fee or payment. But I don't think I'll ever have perfect language, but certainly I don't have a great suggestion for you right now to target the dealer in a way that would capture all of the people that could be given a cut.
Tamara, do you need a little bit of time to think about this? I mean, a little bit of time. What you think, is it something you could just come up with on the fly in a little bit, or is it something to take a little bit more time than that?
Mr. Chairman, this is currently scheduled to be our last meeting. We are asking for one more meeting day from Management Council, so if we do pass a conceptual amendment, I can incorporate it and you can vote on the bill by email, or we can have a fourth meeting and you can see that bill draft in front of you. We can also amend the bill, for example, at the first standing committee, if you do end up moving it forward fairly easily, or on first, second, third reading in either house. So there's always an opportunity for language to be proposed that could better capture. I can try to provide something right now if you want to move forward and go ahead and vote on it, or vote on it by email or at another meeting.
Okay, on that note, we're behind our break schedule, so I'll just call a 10-minute break. And if you want to take a little bit of time to look at that, and if that's not enough time, there's no pressure, just take a look, see if you can do anything with it, and we'll come back and hear what you've come up with, if anything. And like I say, it's no pressure, Tamara. I appreciate you working on this, and I know it's a lot to do sometimes, but a 10-minute break will reconvene at 10:50. Karen, are we ready? All right, well then we'll wait a little bit longer for Tamara to return. Yes, Representative Webb? What do you?
Everybody on this side knows. I will be leaving at 5 o'clock today regardless, so I've got a plane to catch.
Representative Webb, I hope to God we're done before 5 o'clock.
I hope we are too.
Well,
but I'm just saying,
that'll be the goal, but
you know,
thank you for,
We're falling behind and I thought, well,
well, I think we're gonna cut, I think we'll get caught up on the next one, but we'll see.
just wanted you to be aware.
All
That
right,
isn't
well-
a threat, that's just
Oh,
for information.
No, it's good,
I'm not-
it puts a fire underneath everything, right? So. Karen, are we back online? Okay, I'd like to call this task force committee meeting back to order. Tamara, would you please come up and explain, I guess, to the task force what we have?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nobody has proposed amendment, but I've drafted some language based on the conversation we just had and printed that out, and there's extra copies available if anybody would like a copy with our staff. I think, does the committee have it in front of you? Okay, so if someone were want to propose this amendment and move it to the bill, it would be to change that paragraph 5 to say in which no person receives any remuneration from facilitating, participating in, hosting, or organizing the game, wager, or transaction other than the direct realization of winnings. So facilitating, participating in, hosting, or organizing is intended to capture the house that hosts the game or has a business or has a place where games are played or wagers happen. Facilitating might mean to deal, or participating might mean to deal or hand out cards or hand out dice. And then rather than payment or fees, just substituting a more broader term, remuneration, which generally means payment for services under common usage. It's not a specifically defined word, but it's a commonly used word within the Wyoming statutes.
Thank you for your work, Tamara. Representative Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Tamara, I appreciate your time here. We get back to remuneration or profit, or let me see, receives any remuneration. And then we go to line 20, page 2. Shouldn't those be the same words? We say revenue on line 20, and we say remuneration or facilitating, participating, is that? I mean, shouldn't we use the same words for what we're talking about? And I don't understand the difference if we change that.
There isn't any.
What's that? Tamara?
Can you point me to the line again? where you see, did you say revenue?
Yeah, revenue on. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Page 2, line 20, says source of revenue. But then we're going about receives any remuneration. I mean, shouldn't that be revenue? I mean, we're going to have so many words in this that, I mean, revenue is revenue, and I mean, I think it just make it clear to even a jury, hopefully.
Thank you, Representative Johnson, for the comment. Senator Crago? No? I thought for sure I was going to hear about that. Tamara, any need to change that on the page 2?
It is, of course, a policy decision, and being consistent with words is great. I think that revenue often incorporates, the plain language of revenue would often incorporate an element of the amount of money that's created after costs are taken into consideration. So for a business, their revenue is usually their gross revenue, why they are open, their intent to profit and make revenue, and on their books, which is a little bit different than if you think about a dealer expecting to make or not being allowed to receive a payment or a fee. Remuneration is more about a payment of any type for services rendered. So for the services of hosting the game or for the services of dealing the game. I think it was intentionally chosen by me, at least for here, to try to be more particular to that person or business receiving a payment or fee, and just try to broaden it from payment or fee, because people can be paid in different ways other than just the cash or a check. The intent was to be broader. You could certainly substitute it back in for payment or fee as was originally proposed. You could also include revenue, but I think you might have found that issue with revenue earlier, which is, well, if you are not very good at business and you break even, your costs are the same, then are you still making a revenue? Is another issue.
Thank you. And Tamara, to that further question, I guess, one seems to be dealing with a person, right? And that's where this amendment's going currently. And the other section's dealing with more of a place. We're dealing with different situations. Is that really that's really what we're trying to do, because we can't have one size fits all that encompasses the place and the person. So we're trying to take it in a two-step process to get more definition and with tighter sideboards in these situations. And that's why maybe we don't have to go back. I mean, do you think we have to go back and as Representative Johnson talked about on page 2 and work that language, or do you feel comfortable that we're all right with that language and it's not excessive? Or the problem with having two different types of definitions, it might seem, because they seem to be dealing with two different situations. So I guess, what's your opinion on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My opinion is that revenue makes more sense on page 2, line 20, that you wouldn't want to substitute it for remuneration there. Whether you want to change it in the proposed amendment is a policy choice. You are right that when different terms are used, courts and lawyers and individuals and businesses assume that the legislature meant two different things. So on page 2, line 20, we would assume that you meant the revenue of the business. If this amendment comes in, we're assuming you mean something other than revenue. So perhaps your dealer has to bring their own deck of cards and their own poker chips, and this just prevents them from any remuneration. Whereas, if you said revenue, then we would have to look at whether that dealer was making a revenue by dealing that game, and that would be a little bit of a different analysis. So I think it's intentional to use the two different words here in a way that makes sense, but it's your policy choice of whether you'd rather use other terms either place.
Thank you, Tamara. So we have a proposed amendment by LSO in front of us. Oh, we have a
I'll
follow-up?
move it.
Well, is it all right? Okay. I apologize. I didn't see you back over there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it worked
Yeah.
better.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, we got it.
I'd like to move it, and I'd like to make a couple comments. And then I'll behave for the rest of the day.
Well, hold on one second before we make any more comments. Let's get a second. We have a second, Senator Crago. Senator McEwen, comment.
Okay. Here's where I see this bill going. It's getting further away from ending poker houses and punishing coffee shops. So I love the language she chose. Remuneration is for the people running the game. Revenue, if I'm running a coffee shop and I can make more money by selling more coffee, good on me. If I can sell more bananas by having a poker game in the back at night, and some of the arguments, I see us going after the small business owners who don't probably care whether they're playing cribbage for money in there. We've created all this, so I love the language, remuneration. And once again, I'm not that eloquent. That's why I initially picked profit other than revenue. Profit off the game, remuneration off the game. Yeah, I think that gets us where we want to go. That's why I'm going to move this. And I think the language is great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator McEwen. Further discussion on this proposed amendment? Seeing none, all in favor of this proposed amendment indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. This amendment passes. We're back on the bill draft. At this point, further discussion on this current bill draft. Representative Johnson?
I still want to use the same language, and I guess we have revenue, line 20 at page 2, and then we have profit, or we have economic benefit. Can we use the same word or both words in the same sentence?
So you're proposing an amendment,
Yes,
Representative Johnson?
that we would take out, we would use either revenue or profit, either or in both line 20 of page 2 and line 6 of page 3.
We just replace
So,
this with this. This just replace that. So there's no economic benefit anymore.
oh,
'Cause this
okay,
just
yeah,
shows
all
the
right, never mind. I'm confused.
You withdraw the?
Yeah, I withdraw.
Okay, all right, we're back on the bill again. I think we've probably discussed this quite a bit. At this point in time, I call for a vote on this proposed bill draft. This is a roll call vote.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. On 26 LSO 0169 as amended, Senator Crago.
Aye.
Senator McEwen.
Aye.
Representative Johnson.
Aye.
Representative Webb.
Aye.
Co-Chairman Lean.
Aye.
Chairman Kolb.
Aye.
6 aye.
Senator Crago?
Mr. Chairman, Madam Co-Chairman, I guess my question is, who are we, what committee do we refer this to for sponsorship, review and sponsorship? I don't know if we've clarified where it should go.
We have not. Senator Crago, would you make a motion for where it might go?
Quick question maybe for Tamara. Is Management Council an acceptable committee to send that to, or what are our options?
Senator Crago, really your options could be any committee that still has a meeting left. It's just a recommendation that they consider it. There's no duty on the committee to consider it. Management Council has always been intended as a potential recipient, and they have a meeting in November, so the timing works out well.
Mr. Chairman, I would move we send the bill to Management Council.
All right, okay, it's been moved. Is there a second? I'll second it. only because I think it was kind of, that always seemed like a good home. I mean, there are other homes, but everyone else, I think, judiciary or whomever else or wherever else we could come up with. I think management council is where this task force came from. And I think that's probably my main reason for thinking it's a good idea, is that it came from management council. It was created by management council. So we're a product of what they supported. So I think it seems logical that it goes to management council myself. Senator Crago.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, so I serve on both those committees. The co-chair, reference judiciary, also could handle it. I just think we're going to be short on time in that committee. We have a lot of big topics to discuss there, and I actually think management council will have more time to get to it than judiciary, which is why I proposed management council.
Oh, we need to vote on this? No? Well, poll the rest of the task force. Comments? No comments, okay. Well, then I guess it goes to management council. What's that? Oh. Well, it'll be in this, there is a question. This will be in the task force name, or would it be in my name? I don't
No,
care. But
The select committee does not have the ability to sponsor legislation itself. So you'll be making a recommendation to management council to consider it for sponsorship.
okay, myself.
Yes.
Senator. Okay, that's fine. I just needed to know the nuances of this, how the procedure.
If it is sponsored, it will be sponsored in the name of management council.
Oh, I got you. So that being we're a task force, we can't, obviously we can't sponsor. I just didn't know that whose name went on said proposed legislation. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
I can find my sheet here. Where the hell did it go? What do we got here? Financial control. Okay, thank you. Next up is, we're only an hour late or so, financial controls. Tamara, would you like to explain that?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the next bill on your agenda is 26 LSO 146. It's version 0.6, anti-money laundering. You've seen this bill in a prior form at your August meeting, and it was also based on 2025 Senate File 116, which came out of the Spectrum Gaming Report study, was individually sponsored, and that bill itself was based on New Jersey statutes. After you looked at the bill at your August meeting, you directed me to work with WESCOP and the County and Prosecuting Attorneys Association, and this version includes technical changes that reflect their discussions that were provided to me, as well as your actions at the last meeting. The big picture of this bill is that under current law, Wyoming doesn't have a comprehensive money laundering statute. This bill would change that by creating two new crimes, money laundering and illegal investment. Money laundering would make it a crime to transport, possess, engage, control, direct transactions with property that a person knows or should reasonably know is derived from criminal activity. And this offense covers not only handling criminal proceeds, but also concealing or disguising their source to avoid reporting requirements. Then the bill also creates the second crime of illegal investment, which targets intentional evasion of reporting laws, of currency reporting laws. So jumping into it, there were no policy changes intended to be made since you last saw this bill at your August meeting, but I did take some liberties cleaning up based on the discussions we had. You see here on page 1, we're creating a new Article 11, money laundering. This is within the criminal code. On page 2, at the top, we have a definition of financial or business institution. There were other definitions in your prior bill draft, and based on feedback, it seemed to make more sense and action taken at the meeting to actually let the criminal law, the general definitions for property control, which were quite close, as well as removing the definition of derived from and letting the common usage control. I did change the definition here from it was financial institution. And I think it's clear from reading the definition that it's not just a financial institution that you might think of a bank or a currency exchange place. It's a financial or business institution because that is defined to include a foreign or domestic money transmitter, an authorized agent thereof, a casino, a check casher, a person engaged in a trade or business, which is any trade or business, or any other person required by state or federal law to report regarding currency transactions or suspicious transactions. So by calling it a financial or business institution, that was just intended to better capture using any kind of a business to structure transactions to avoid reporting requirements, because that's where this definition is going to be used. But putting that aside, the first crime is money laundering. It's on page 2, lines 11 through 22. It says that a person is guilty of money laundering if the person does any of the three things. So first, and on its alone, is to transport or possess property the person knows or reasonably should know be derived from criminal activity or represent the proceeds of criminal activity. That in itself would be money laundering. Second, to direct, organize, finance, plan, manage, supervise, or control the transportation of or transactions in property the person knows or reasonably should know to be derived from criminal activity or represent the proceeds of criminal activity. And then third, on page 3, beginning on lines 4 through 23 and carrying on to the next page, is this third, more complicated way to commit money laundering. And it has multiple elements. It would be to engage in a transaction involving property the person knows to be, or reasonably should know to be derived from criminal activity or represent the proceeds of criminal activity, with either the intent to facilitate or promote the criminal activity, or knowing that the transaction is designed in whole or part to conceal or disguise the nature, location, source, ownership, or control of the property derived from criminal activity, or to avoid a transaction reporting requirements under the laws of this state, any other state or thereof the United States. There's a clarification on page 3, lines 21 through 23, that states that for purposes of this subdivision, the transaction or transactions shall not be required to exceed any transaction reporting threshold under state or federal law at any single financial or business institution on any single business day. On page 4, subsection B is the penalty. Money laundering, any of those three types of money laundering we just described and looked at, would be a felony punishable by imprisonment for not more than 10 years, a fine of not more than $10,000, or both. At the last meeting, we discussed a bit that this is a felony, while the underlying criminal activity could be misdemeanor. And I did receive some feedback from at least one county and prosecuting attorney in her own, on her own behalf, but no consensus from the association on how to address this per se. And I've given you 2 suggestions here based on my review of existing statutes and based on that attorney's suggestion. And that would be to grade the offense, either to tie the penalty to the underlying offense. This is how attempt, solicitation, and conspiracy and accessory after the fact is. So if you attempt to commit robbery, the way that it's addressed, rather than if you actually carry it out, is, well, what is that robbery? Is it a misdemeanor or is it a felony? And your attempt to do so is the same. You tie that attempt to the underlying criminal offense. Similarly, if you money laundered and you were money laundering property that came from a misdemeanor, it would be a misdemeanor. If you were money laundering property that came from a felony, it would be a felony. The other suggestion is to grade the offense by the value of property involved within a 6-month period. This is similar to how unlawful use of a credit card, a check, or debit card is used, and that language is on page 5 in the staff comment lines 6 through 26. And to tie it to the value of property derived from or representing the proceeds of criminal activity. If it's less than $1,000 in any 6-month period, it would be a misdemeanor. If it's more than $1,000, it would be a felony. Those are suggestions and staff comment. They're not in the bill. Right now, the bill is not tied or graded. It's just a felony for money laundering. Any amount, any crime could be a felony. On page 5, beginning on line 31, is the new crime of illegal investment. That hasn't changed much since you saw it last. Just states that a person is guilty of illegal investment if with intent to evade a transaction reporting requirement of the state or of the federal FinCEN laws, the Bank Secrecy Act, or any rules or regulations under those chapters and sections. The person does one of two things. They cause a financial or business institution to fail to report or to file a report that contains a material omission or misstatement of fact, or they structure or assist in structuring any transaction with one or more of those financial or business institutions. And structures means that a person acting alone or in conjunction with or on behalf of another person conducts one or more currency transaction in any amount at any one business or financial institution on any one or more days in any manner for the purpose of evading currency transaction reporting requirements under federal or state law. Then for purposes of this paragraph, the transaction or transactions need not exceed any reporting threshold under law on any single day. Illegal investment would similarly be a felony punishable by imprisonment for not more than 10 years, a fine of not more than $10,000 or both. And the crime would be effective July 1st, 2026.
Thank you, Tamara. I think if someone needs to silence something, I don't know where that's coming from. But thank you, Tamara. Questions for Tamara? Coach Arline?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, does this bill all encompass digital transactions? As we're seeing more and more digital currency, will this be encompassing of those?
Tamara?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I think this bill doesn't specifically spell out, but the verbs that are used throughout the bill are not limited to in-person transactions. I think they're, and federal laws that are related to this bill about the money transmitting and financial reporting requirements do deal with digital transactions as well.
Thank you. Further questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, Senator McEwen. Go on, sir.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question. We were discussing earlier, so I sold a $50,000 automobile to a friend for $10,000. Does that fall under money laundering or me just being a nice guy?
Tamara?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, I don't see the underlying crime or criminal activity that $10,000 you made or lost on that transaction. Can you clarify? Did you steal the automobile?
Senator McEwen?
I love that answer, by the way. No, I didn't steal the automobile. And thank you for clarifying that. It did come up in the last committee meeting, if you recall. But thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Further questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Tamara. Stand by, I suppose. Public comment about this bill draft? Anybody who wishes to speak to it? Go on, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alan Thompson with Wascop, Wyoming Association of Sheriffs and Chiefs of Police. And in polling our members after the last meeting, there's once again some pretty strong support for the concept of this bill being available for Wyoming law enforcement. And while it's still a policy decision on part of the committee before you, there was some discussion at least or interest in grading the penalty to be applicable to the level of the crime as proposed or as discussed last meeting. It would make the money laundering of even $2 a felony. And so our members would ask that the committee consider a grading of some sort, whatever the policy of the committee be. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Crago?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on that point, Mr. Thompson, on the grading of the level of the crime, I mean, if we talk about, for example, forgery, I think it's always a felony, regardless of the amount, the underlying amount that the forgery is maybe gaining, right? So whether it's $1 or $1 million, it's forgery's a felony. I kind of view this as a similar type crime. So could you talk a little bit about that? For example, why forgery is a felony and always a felony, and then this wouldn't be? And the reason I'm asking that is, so if you catch someone, let's say we're able to prosecute someone for money laundering, it's probably not a one-time occurrence. And so if you catch them laundering $5, it's not the only time they've done that. And I think that's, similar in forgery. So I'm trying to wrap my head around why this wouldn't be a felony all the time, regardless of the underlying amount. So could you talk about that a little bit?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Crago, I think the concern from our members was the ultimate success of this bill passing. Because if there's a perception that law enforcement will be, I think what was discussed last year is a candy bar shoplifted and taken to another, transported somewhere else. I mean, we're looking at the applicability of money laundering if there was property that was ill-gotten gains and transported somewhere else. I think we would all agree that that's not the focus of law enforcement or the prosecution to deal with low-level crimes like that when other statutes are available. But I think that ask comes from the ultimate success of this bill. We just don't want it to get hung up on what ifs and maybes. And we look at, general theft already has a $1,000, over or under $1,000 felony and misdemeanor, and something along those lines does somewhat comport with statute. But I do understand that, forgery has that component. If you're providing a gain or getting a gain from that fraud or that forgery, I understand. Once again, we just want the success of this bill to make it through, so we have another tool in the arsenal of law enforcement in Wyoming.
Thank you. Representative Webb?
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question has to do with, was there any discussion among the members concerning the possibility of prosecutors dropping everything down to a misdemeanor from a felony? Was there any concern there?
Mr. Chairman, that actually didn't come up at all. If this bill passes or doesn't, or passes, however it does pass, if it passes, prosecutor still has the determination to not file any charges whatsoever or drop charges to other related things. So I don't know that the passage of this bill still rests, the ultimate charging decision rests with the prosecutor.
Thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Any public comment? Further public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Committee, task force, I should say, what is your pleasure?
Move the bill.
It's been moved by Co-Chair Line. Is there a second? Second by Representative Johnson. Further discussion on the bill or of proposed amendments? Seeing none. LSO, roll call vote.
Yes, sir. On on 26 LSO 0146, Senator Crago.
Aye.
Senator McEwen.
Aye.
Representative Johnson.
Aye.
Representative Webb.
Aye.
Co-Chairman Lean.
Aye.
Co-Chairman Cole.
Aye.
6 aye.
Got to turn my mic on. Yeah, well, I think at this point, unless we have another suggestion or motion by the task force, this will also move the management council.
Thank you, sir. I'll make sure to make the note that all will go to Management Council unless you deem otherwise.
Until further, I guess, notice. Thank you. Your name. Next up, Director Johansson, I believe, social impacts, responsible gaming, and problem gambling. Is Sarah Beth also online?
Mr. Co-Chairman, she will be attending via Zoom. She's in Casper today.
Thank you. Director, name and rank and serial number?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Select Committee. Stephen Johansson, I'm the Director for the Wyoming Department of Health. In case you have other detailed questions, I also have the Administrator of our Behavioral Health Division, Reagan Latham, behind me, as well as our Public Health Division Administrator, Stephanie Sandoval. Mr. Chairman, this was a presentation and a bit of overview and data that was intended for the Capital Finance Committee. They punted us to you all for a follow-up on your meeting in Evanston. As you may recall, I testified to a few things, answered a few questions about the data that we do have on problematic gambling, the data that we don't have or struggle to get to quantify problems and trends that we see in this particular area. So this presentation that we shared with the committee highlights a few things that I'll go over. Number one, the funding that's allocated to the Department of Health, which we then partner with county governments on various activities for prevention. We'll go over that, as well as a table that shows some of the county activities that funding supports. Third, some national and Wyoming data. I'll caution you here, as a very small state, some of the data is very limited, but we also tried to show some things that we see from the national problem gambling hotline, for example, just to give you some visuals of how we seem to be trending. And then finally, Mr. Chairman, you all had asked about treatment resources for folks maybe on the higher end of that type of problem, both through state-funded providers, but also in the private sector. We'll discuss that briefly as well. But being very quick with my comments, Mr. Chairman, and happy to answer any questions that you have. The prevention programming for problematic gambling that flows through the Department of Health was established years ago in 9/24/104. Essentially, it's about $300,000 per year. You heard about some of those allocations, how that works this morning and at your last meeting. What we do with that funding is essentially through our prevention programming that typically goes out to county governments with our support, but there's a lot of local control on what type of prevention activities, campaigns, awareness, direct treatment, things that that county might prioritize. That's essentially how the funding mechanism works. You'll see a breakdown in the bullet points on slide number 2 of kind of what those expenditures are. I'll note that in the recent couple of fiscal years, you'll see expenditures slightly over $300,000. That's because some of that funding carries over from fiscal year to fiscal year and invoices are processed accordingly. On slide number 3, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, you'll see just a little bit of a distillation of some of the activities that occur in local communities and counties through their prevention coalitions. So as I mentioned, public awareness campaigns, media, fact sheets, et cetera, training for different types of providers in terms of, when folks reach out for help, often at our mental health providers, at our community mental health centers, you're really trying to treat addiction, and that can take a lot of different forms, both in terms of substance use and different types of substances, as well as things like problematic gambling that in many cases occur together. But there are trainings available, and some of those can be facilitated to specific providers on best practices for how to treat this type of problem. We also have some counties that have various elements on their websites or online campaigns and visibility, support groups, trainings in the community, and in a small way, sometimes paying directly for treatment through those prevention funds. Mr. Chairman, on slide number 4, you will see some data that we didn't have at the Evanston meeting. And again, would caution this, the numbers are very low, but you can kind of get an impressionistic sense of the trends. This comes from the National Problem Gambling Helpline. This is a national helpline that folks can call if they feel like they're experiencing a problem or having a problem. And you can see it's very noisy, but a slight trend upward in recent years. But again, I would just caveat these data. If you look at the bottom of the graph, over this entire time period going back to 2016, we're talking about a total of 437 calls. So in general, the volume of folks accessing this particular helpline is quite low.
Director, I had a question.
Please.
And Task Force, feel free to jump in when you have one. On this number of calls, are these the people that have the problem with gaming or gambling, or are they some sort of relative or husband, spouse, you know? Who are these folks, or how are they identified?
Mr. Chairman, since we do not run that call center directly, I can't answer definitively there. My assumption would be it's generally the person with the problem, but I would assume that there's instances where a family member or a friend might do that on their behalf. We just don't know.
Okay, continue, Mr. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Slide number 5, again, we discussed some of this. You heard some public testimony in your Evanston meeting about studies over the years that have been conducted, both in terms of local needs assessments and broader statewide view. So a few bullet points here with studies that were funded by the Wyoming Lottery from the Problem Gambling Coalition, both in 2016 and in 2022. You can see a breakdown of some of those overall numbers there. And again, I won't speak for Laramie County, but as you heard in Evanston, a local needs assessment was conducted to try to quantify more of the problem here in this local community. And you can see the data there that 9% of Laramie County residents who gamble exhibited some sort of problematic gambling behavior. Next, Mr. Chairman, on slide 6, I wanted to follow up on this since we had discussed this at your Evanston meeting. We had proposed something that could help the legislature, could help the state in furthering its understanding of these trends and this problem as we move forward in the months and years to come. The Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance Survey is a statewide survey that's conducted on a variety of different both physical health and behavioral health factors that give you a general statewide sampling of trends in different types of behaviors. We had proposed adding a few questions in this particular topic to that survey, and we've moved forward doing that. The unfortunate frustration is that while we will add that to the upcoming 2026 survey, as with most surveys, the data will lag, and we will have those data available in 2027. But we have moved forward to incorporate that, just so you as a committee, the legislature in general, has better information about what's happening with our population in Wyoming as we go forward. And finally, Mr. Chairman, you all had asked about treatment data. So I'll speak specifically for the state-funded community mental health providers. We obviously do not fund or regulate the private sector mental health providers, so our data is a bit limited there outside of population health, public health data like we're talking about with surveys. But in terms of our community mental health and substance abuse centers, in fiscal year 24, we ran the data. We had 22 clients that had indicated in their intake a problem with gaming or gambling as a part of their reason for seeking services. That's out of a total of around 10 to 11,000 clients that sought services. So that seems, remarkably low in terms of an overall fraction. But I will just mention and caveat again that what our providers are funded for and trained to do is really to treat addiction, and that can take a variety of different forms. And often you have comorbid addiction conditions or substances of choice. So I would take the number with a grain of salt because in many cases, folks are coming in seeking services because they're addicted to alcohol or methamphetamine and may not indicate, other types of issues, both with problematic behaviors, gambling, social issues at the outset of their treatment. But we wanted to provide the data we have. It does come out as pretty low as an overall percentage of the folks that seek services through the state-funded providers. Mr. Chairman, again, the big caveat here is there are treatment resources available for folks that are not enrolled in state programs, both in terms of private providers, telehealth providers, their willingness or ability to reach out and seek help, again, is not something that's compelled, and also not something we can directly quantify in a really meaningful way for you. But I do think it's important to know and to make sure that the awareness is out there, and our county prevention coalitions and county governments do get the word out that if you're struggling with a problem like this, there are resources out there, both nationally and in the state, to seek help. With that, Mr. Chairman, I know it's a really 30,000-mile-an-hour overview, but wanted to follow up, provide a bit more information on some of the things that you discussed in Evanston, and with that, happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Director. Questions? Representative Webb?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Johansson, thank you for being here and providing this information. I'm curious to know, because this money has been given to the Department of Health for quite some time, what is the carryover now? We know the last couple of years that you've shown here, but what's the carryover?
Director.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Webb, that's a very good question. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but we're happy to prepare them very quickly on what the standard budget is versus the expenditures, and within the biennium, what carries over fiscal year to fiscal year. That's an easy table to produce. Just want to mention that what I was getting at before is that we offer these resources to county governments. Some use them, some over the years have not. And so there's a bit of noise in that distribution of where the funding goes, but happy to prepare that for you.
Thank you. Follow up?
Follow up.
I'm curious to know if the gambling, the money that is provided to the Department of Health for gambling can also be used for alcohol and drug or other treatments if it isn't requested by the individual.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Webb, that's a very good question. Generally speaking, no, these funds per the legislation are earmarked for this purpose. But your question's a good one, because the overall prevention funding landscape from the Department of Health to county governments and coalitions does involve other types of activities, suicide prevention, substance use, injury prevention, et cetera. But that's generally a different funding stream. So the way we work with county governments is in the agreements. There's basically statements of work that dictate what's being done and what essentially pot of money funds that. Again, happy to get you that breakdown of the overall prevention environment with our budget and those expenditures locally.
Thank you. Can I have one more?
One more follow-up.
Okay. Is there any auditing that's done to show, when you send a certain amount of money to a various county Department of Health, as to where that money goes? Is that reported back to you? And then is that money, or is that report forwarded back to the legislature?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Webb, yes, that's all tracked. And again, we can produce reports on how that money is expended, where it goes, what the agreements dictate. So I believe that's available. I'm not sure if there's a legislatively required report, but we're more than happy to share that information that we have.
Oh, thank you. Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, based on the numbers you've given us, the taxpayer is paying about $687 per person who's reported this. What is the success rate? How many people who have a gambling problem no longer have the gambling problem within the year? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Director.
Mr. Chairman, Senator McEwen, it's a really good question that I have a really terrible answer to. The basic answer is we don't know. That's not something that individuals are tracked and followed up with by the government on the ultimate success. But your question's a good one in that we struggle, as does every state around the country, with quantifying direct results of prevention interventions. It's really on a population base. The intent there is to try to avoid something happening, and quantifying whether an intervention or an action avoided something happening is just remarkably difficult just in the data and in the statistics. I wish I had a better answer for you, Senator McEwen. I would just caveat that I wouldn't take these problem gambling prevention dollars and divide that into the number of clients that you saw on 2 slides, both the national helpline and the treatment resources. 2 very different things, where the prevention funds are really, again, population-based efforts, awareness campaigns, et cetera. In a separate side of the Department of Health, the 22 individuals that reach out for treatment or at our community mental health centers indicate they have a gambling problem. That's not part of programming for prevention, if that makes sense, kind of 2 separate areas. And if I'm not making sense, Senator McEwen, happy to clarify or elaborate.
Follow up, Senator?
Please, thank you. So would it be better if we were just treating all addictions as one, putting the amount of money into it, and maybe fixing all of them? And this is going to sound stupid, but the newest thing is shopping addiction. And I'm not sure it doesn't all relate to the same thing. Would it be better if we just funded addiction funding other than defining it? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. Chairman, Senator McEwen, I agree with you 100%. And in fact, that in our treatment programming for community mental health centers, that's exactly what we do. And I probably wasn't clear enough, or as clear as I should have been earlier, in saying that when folks reach out to a community mental health center for help, and they meet one of the established eligibility criteria for state-funded services, then yes, the addiction itself is treated holistically. And we do not micromanage with these prevention funds that you see here. The 300,000 are not part of that system. And the treatment is really provided holistically, whether there's substance use, whether there's gambling, whether there's mental health conditions. That's essentially how that works. But I couldn't agree with you more that often these types of behaviors are accompanied by other behaviors, social factors, et cetera. And that's essentially what we strive for in the treatment resources that the Department of Health provides. The 300,000 for problem gambling is more of a public health effort in partnership with county governments, kind of on the front end. Again, awareness trainings, making the availability of resources or the knowledge of resources there. So similar, approach and content, but very different types of programming.
Co-Chair Line.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for coming today and presenting for us. Could you please pull together some data that shows us the increase in the use of social programs for medical, food, unemployment, and what that looks like per county from 2019 to 2025?
Mr. Chairman, Co-Chairman Lean, happy to take a stab at that. Some of those areas like unemployment, certainly not through the Department of Health, but we'll see what we can put together on that.
Director, thank you. I did have a question about the 300,000. Is it fair to say that it's just a pass-through to the counties? Is that really what it is, to help me understand just where that 300,000 is going?
Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't disagree with that. And in a lot of our prevention programming, our very healthy partnership with counties is kind of in that vein. We do try to make resources available for best practices, things that my staff might know about more than someone working in county government will. And we make resources like that available to guide what best practices might be, things to avoid. But yes, essentially what we're doing in a lot of these areas is making that resource available to county or local coalitions to do what they feel is best in their communities and prioritize the issues that they believe are not only most important, but the strategies they believe are most effective.
Thank you, Director. And also, just to follow up with that, what are the requirements that those counties have to have when spending those? I mean, can they use those dollars for something else besides the intended purpose? I guess my follow-up question.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's a good question, and as I mentioned before, generally no. And I think it might be helpful, happy to do this after this meeting, just to share those agreements that we have, not only in this area, but with county governments and prevention coalitions in general, to give you a sense of how that's structured, what the requirements are, what the audit functions are. We can provide that to the committee, absolutely.
Thank you, Director. Co-Chair, Line?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Along the lines of the money that is given to help with problematic gambling or gaming behaviors, is this open to all counties where skill games are available, or is it open only for the counties that have pari-mutuel wagering?
Mr. Chairman, Co-Chairman Lean, very good question. My understanding, and I'll confirm this after the meeting, it's open to all counties, as all of our prevention funds are. There's, again, depending on the particular issue, content, service area, counties that take advantage of that and some that don't, but we can get you a breakdown there.
Director's follow-up question, but that question is, why wouldn't we do it proportionally to counties that in fact have gaming, as opposed to weighting that heavier than the counties that say don't have gaming for the distribution of that $300,000? I mean, is there any calculation done in that respect?
Mr. Chairman, another good question. One general answer to that is a lot of our prevention funding is allocated to counties on a population basis. And in this particular issue, it's worth bearing in mind that, through online gambling, sports wagering, et cetera, an internet connection is the vehicle to have access to that. And so it could be an issue that a county who might not have this type of gaming or pari-mutuel gaming may want to take advantage of. But it really is a mixed bag in terms of what county governments and county coalitions prioritize in their prevention work. But generally speaking, it's, again, available to all counties for that reason.
Thank you, Director. Further questions? Seeing none, Director, I did want to have a follow-up with this. We've had conversations about the money we're throwing at this, the $300,000, and just quantitatively, what data do we have that says it's doing any good? I mean, and I say that mostly in how can we improve it if we need to have improvements? Because, maybe we're overfunding it, and maybe it's not really it's not doing anything. Or maybe it is doing something and we need to allocate funds in another direction that'd be more appropriate. Kind of, have you done any studies, or does the Department of Health have any access to metrics that would help us in this question, instead of just saying, hey, I got 300,000, I'm throwing it somewhere, I hope it sticks? I see billboards on the interstate, which I don't really know what they do. And we had testimony to say, well, they're giving us money for these advertising purposes, and we're having these billboards put up. But I mean, I'm all for what works, but just doing it because, well, I guess we think we need to. I guess I'd like to know from the department why we're doing it that way and why that's the best expenditure of those funds for the purposes we're trying to impact, like for gaming issues. Something better than what we're doing. I think I realize this is kind of like a pass-through thing for you, but in the larger question would be what are we doing it for? I mean, is it really having an impact who we're trying to get to those type of folks that need interdiction? And in a broader question, does it work? I mean, I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. However, I do wonder, just the fiscal side of it, we're spending money, and is it going to the right purpose? So just as a broad question, and I realize you probably, it's something you'd have to maybe go back and think about, maybe, most likely. But just be prepared, I guess, for the broader question is basically what the hell we're doing. I mean, are we really making a difference? And do we need more money? Do we need less money? I can't believe what we do. We guessed right at 300,000. That's what I can't believe. But just if you could help with that for the task force, because these are some of the questions that are probably going to be ongoing. This is a small facet of the money, but it's still money. And so if you could help with that, I think it'd be greatly appreciated. And maybe, and your honesty is probably most appreciated, like you've already exercised, that you just don't know in a lot of cases. Well, maybe that's a fair answer. But we need to try to get to the bottom of it if we can, try as hard as we can to answer that question, because it's going to come up to all of us. What are we doing? So,
Mr. Chairman, if I may respond, you're not wrong in that, you know, the motivation for those questions and something that I wrestle with every day when we do our best to try not to throw money at the wall and see if it sticks somewhere and put some structure behind it. But in areas like this, especially when you're trying to affect metrics on a population level, and it's very difficult in those areas to tie outcomes to causality from the intervention. It just is. And so what you see in this world is a lot of output-based management. So we did these things and these types of campaigns, and we can correlate sometimes with drops in rates of certain behaviors or you know, outcomes that we see, but tying that directly to a causal mechanism and saying, because you did this billboard campaign or this awareness campaign, your problem gambling rates dropped by X%. I'll be honest and say I'd be very surprised if you ever see a study that quantifies something to that degree, and if you did, I would question it just scientifically. However, we did not come up with the $300,000 figure. That was you guys. And we're happy to use that in the way we're directed to support those local efforts. To your point, though, some could be working very well. Some, you know, maybe don't have that efficacy, and it is hard to know. I will say, you know, to throw some kudos at our, you know, county commissions and our county governments, what they're doing to prioritize the efforts that they undertake, both with problem gaming or gambling, substance use, suicide prevention. They are informed by data both that we provide and that they have locally or nationally that directs them in the areas to intervene in their communities. If that gets us to causal connections for are we making a difference, are we improving? You're 100% right. It's a deep philosophical conundrum, and I don't know if $300,000, $0, or $3 million is the right figure. I just know that we try to, with legislative direction, be there for support when counties want to try to address one of these issues. But happy, Mr. Chairman, take your direction. We will absolutely do our best, expanding on presentations like this to try to quantify the results of the work the best we can, so that as the months and years go forward, as you consider these issues, that we can provide you the best information on efficacy.
yeah, well, thank you, Director, for those answers. And I realize you had nothing to do with the $300,000 coming to you. I mean, I get that. But we've just had this number floating around for how many years? We really haven't scrutinized. And I think at this point, it's probably high time we really look at it and make an honest determination, what are we doing? You know, just that much. And no, there's no, I guess, finger pointing with anybody. It is the way it is, how it developed. And I'll blame it on the legislative people that were here before me because they're not here. So here we sit, and the question comes up is, you know, are we doing the right thing? Or just what you think is our top official in this arena? I don't know, you know, what's your thoughts if you could evaluate it? I think, and come back with some sort of positional statement on where we're at instead of just doing the same thing we've done for the last, I don't know how many years. That's kind of what my question's really revolving around, Director.
Mr. Chairman, I'm right there with you and absolutely happy to do that.
Okay, well, thank you, Director, for your showing up and testifying. Task Force questions? Well, seeing none, the task force is probably getting hungry for lunch. Thank you, Director, for your testimony. Any public comment about this? Oh, Sarah Beth? Oh. Is that her there?
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
And she's
Hi.
just giving us an overview of what's going on in Buffalo this weekend.
Well, hold on there, Sarah Beth. I guess I didn't see you there at first, but the Wyoming County Commissioners Association's up here. We'll have them go first, and then you're next up. Thank you. Jeremiah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Jeremiah Riemann here on behalf of the Wyoming County Commissioners Association. Appreciate the conversation today. It's one that we've asked you to take on and have asked a few other committees to consider. I actually want to take you back to the June meeting. I provided a couple of documents to you, and I think it'll help to answer some of the questions that you posed today. Some of them I certainly can't. We have had an interest in this because we have disparate pots of money, and then we have areas where there is no money. We have different parties that are responsible for this activity, and in some cases, no one's responsible. And so we've suggested that there is a better way to do this. And whether that's us leading that effort or whether that's somebody else, we don't have a particular position on. That's a policy question. But we think something needs to be done. So one, we should look at whether we should consolidate funding. We should look and see if we should capture funding from the revenue of all of the various activities that we're talking about here. You know, the question came up, why isn't this money targeted at those counties that have skill-based amusement games in their jurisdiction? Well, the 300,000 you just spoke to comes from online sports wagering, and that's available in all of our counties. If you looked at skill-based amusement, we don't collect any revenue that is directed towards problematic gaming. The same exists for historic horse racing. There is some unused or unclaimed lottery revenues that are available for this area, and those are under the discretion of the Lottery Corporation. And I've appreciated the conversation about whether we properly capture where this money should be focused. And so I might just jump into a few of these things. Representative Webb, you asked about the money, the carryover. One of the documents that I provided at that June meeting, actually I provided one in person. If you added up the total of those, they exceed $300,000. And that's because the statutory authorization says that if it isn't used, then it stays in the pot and it gets turned over the next year. And as you've heard in the conversation here, there are some counties that aren't accepting this money. Why? Primarily because of two reasons. One, the amount is not sufficient enough for them to feel that they should take that and try and carry out a program. Representative Webb, you probably heard your county attorney at the last meeting say, I was kind of surprised to hear we're one of those counties that didn't take that funding. Well, immediately after that, I showed her number, and she said, oh, I see exactly why we don't accept that amount of money. And just for clarification, in fiscal year 2025, that would have amounted to just over $13,000 for Uinta County. So they didn't accept that funding. They didn't feel that they could properly use that. If you go into that particular portion of statute, and this is included again in the documents that I provided in June, it says that it may be used for programs to prevent and treat problematic gambling behavior. And some of the counties have said, we don't know if we have much of that in our community. And that is perhaps a limitation. Some of them are a little concerned about whether they can actually use it to treat the underlying issues that might exist in this instance, mental health issues, because that language is not used in the statutory authorization. So that's another reason that they often don't accept that money. And it's one reason that I come to you to suggest we could do better and perhaps recast that particular part of the statutory language. It's correct to suggest that this is pass-through money for the Department of Health, and that's why some have questioned whether we need to be putting them in that position. Now, I will say the upside is we do have a strong partnership with the Department of Health and have regular discussions with them. We as an association have taken it very seriously that this is a sort of new territory that counties are going into. So we've hosted 2 or 3 discussions, and some of your panelists today have been part of that discussion. We've had counties that perhaps receive a little bit more money try and partner with smaller communities so that the buy-in power of one might assist the other in this particular space, given that the funding can be kind of small here. I hope I've helped to articulate a few things here. We do think we can do better for the citizens of Wyoming, but in part, we need your help to clean up some of these statutes. I've actually taken a crack at trying to craft what that could look like, but I've not had a chance to vet it with anybody, so I'm afraid to just come in here and throw it at you. I very much want to be a part of that solution and bring a solution to you and not just say, please fix it for us. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director. Questions for Jeremiah? No? Seeing none.
Thanks.
Thank you. And thank you for your volunteering to work on language. It'd be greatly appreciated. Further comment? Public comment? Online, Sarah Beth, I guess we're up to you. Would you please introduce yourself?
You bet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Madam Co-Chairman. I am Sarah Beth Lyon. I am the Responsible Gaming Liaison and the Public Information Officer with the Wyoming Gaming Commission. And I had provided you all with a memo earlier this week with some information. Some of it is a little bit of a duplication of what Director Johansson had talked to you all about earlier. And so I don't want to repeat any of that. I did want to let you know that September is Responsible Gaming Education Month, and that wasn't in my memo. And it is a program with the American Gaming Association. It's a national one, and folks all over the country are promoting responsible gaming, setting a budget, keeping it social, making it for entertainment, knowing your odds, and making sure you're playing with legal vendors. So that is something each Thursday you should receive an email that talks a little bit about what different things they have going on, just information, small bits. In July, you asked me to talk a little bit about the upcoming problem gambling conference hosted by the Wyoming Council on Problem Gambling. It is next Friday, September 19th in Buffalo. And it's titled that When the Fun Stops and Important Ethical Topics. It's addressing clients' gambling addiction, securing client information, professional wills. So it's largely going to be topics for counselors and mental health professionals, but also for the public around hidden addictions, stigmas, and lived experience. Director Johansson talked about the 1-800-GAMBLER numbers, and our numbers are very different, but I wanted to let you know why. 1-800-GAMBLER has been around for a long time. At some point, there was another number that was out there, and it was 522-4700, which is different. And so all of that data has been combined in the numbers that I provided for you, which is 6,592 phone calls from Wyoming since 2016. And in the last 2 years, they have added chat and texting just to keep up with modern times for folks that are struggling. And you had asked Director Johansson about if it is those struggling or if it's family members. And from what I've read, it is mostly those folks that are struggling, but it is also people reaching out for support for family members, loved ones that are struggling. So there is some commingling in those numbers. Another question that you guys have asked is what is going on with this 300,000? What are some of the things being done? And I just wanted to highlight Cheyenne, Laramie County, the Cheyenne Regional Medical Center, and they presented last meeting, but they talked about that environmental scan, and you have that report. They have a behavioral health action team that's providing education on gambling, and they're hosting community trainings in partnership with the VOA of the Northern Rockies, who they also have an executed contract in place to increase staffing capacity through training and education, providing treatment services. They also have an executed contract with Recover Wyoming, increasing staff capacity through training education to provide that peer support, individuals struggling with gambling disorders, and also some virtual recovery meetings. And then Live Mental Health Urgent Care, so that they can help in that screening of folks who may have those comorbid addictions where there is alcohol and gambling addictions. So all of that is in that memo, and I appreciate you letting me testify remotely. I have family obligations here today, but wanted to be sure that I had that information before you, and I would stand for any questions.
Well, thank you, Sarah Beth, for your testimony. Any questions, task force? Seeing none, thank you for your work, Sarah Beth, and coming online. Look forward to seeing you in person, though. And with that, I think that ends this topic. We're going to call this a lunch break until 1:45, so we'll reconvene the meeting at 1:45. Yeah, no problem. Oh, okay. I never